The challenge of space.
If it takes more than 500 years to reach our nearest star system, the men who make the journey must be kept in suspended animation, their life processes slowed down almost to zero, to the borderline between life and death itself. Already we can almost maintain this state with low temperature control, but perhaps one day a chemical substance will be developed which can achieve the same results. An eternity drug which will place the world's first star travelers, Pelham, Endicott, and Williams, in that unconscious limbo of mind and body for their epic journey.
Hey, lads, get your sleeves rolled up.
But, Chief, you know I faint at the sight of a needle.
500 years and easy stages. This guy's going to be snoring his head off in the sack, and already he's bucking for extra sleep.
Yeah. Now listen. I've staged the doses. Joe, you'll be first awake, somewhere between 50 and 55 years out. Now, when you do, watch the chronometer above your bunk like a hawk. Under no circumstances move until 3 hours have elapsed. You understand?
Sure, John.
You'll then make your way to the main control room, carry out the instructions detailed for you on the clipboard bearing your name.
Check.
And you'll find the succeeding doses of your eternity drug inside your locker. Select the right one and dose yourself. Now, the doses are staggered so that we'll awaken in sequence, once every 50 years.
Why the insistence upon no motion out of us until the massagers have finished their work, John?
Oh, well, think of it, Peter. Think of it. 50 years. Now, in your case, a second man to wake, a full century will have elapsed before you come to. Your whole system is going to need rather a lot of adjustment.
Now, there's a masterly understatement.
Pulse, respiration, blood flow, all reduced to a virtual standstill, and then speeded up again slowly as the drug wears off. Now, if you make an inadvertent move, a shock will certainly kill you on the spot.
That's a nice prospect. I wonder if...
Starship Far Centaurus, your final warning. Liftoff minus 60 seconds and counting. Call pre-takeoff checks.
Call pre-takeoff. Standing by.
Seal reservoirs. Disconnect top-up lines and short-side power circuits when ready.
Green light on the board. Clean seal on the reservoirs. Disconnecting all externals.
Roger. Visual check shows all externals clear.
Roger. Gantry light shows red.
Gantry disconnect. Gantry rolling. Report green gantry light.
Will do. Gantry light now amber.
Roger.
Gantry light green.
Report your board.
All green lights on the board. Starship ready for liftoff.
Crew to couches for liftoff.
Crew positioned. Standing by.
Starship Far Centaurus liftoff in 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. Atlantis. This is Earthside Control. Liftoff plus 30 seconds. Clean lift, no hitches. Radar surveillance shows tracking on correct computed trajectory.
Earthside, this is Far Centaurus. All readings show green lights. Ship's running sweet and clean. So long, Earth. From all of us. We'll never forget you. Can you still see it astern, Peter?
Yeah, just make it out. I've lost the moon, but Earth is still there. Well, it's dimming now. Still lovely, though. Blue and green. It'll be a memory to hold.
40 hours. We'll be sleeping soon. All of us. When we wake up, the sun will only be a tiny dust mote, just like Earth is now.
Yeah, I know, John. And Earth will have gone on without us.
Ooh, Joe. Joe, what's the matter?
It must be those green apples I ate. Or maybe I just stood up too quick. No, I got all dizzy. Thought I was going to flake out on you.
It's not the green apples, Joe.
Now, you head for your bunk, Joe. That's right.
The drug, huh? That figures I'm the first one to wake. Got an early call. Well, I should be the first to hit the sack. Sleep well, you guys.
Now, you remember the rules, Joe. Because our sleep is staggered, we won't be awake at the same time again until we reach the Centauri system. We'll meet then. In 500 Earth years.
I got you, Skipper. I'll remember to set my alarm clock.
I wakened with a start. At first, I thought the eternity drug. It hasn't worked. I was sure of it. The tiny cabin was exactly as I'd seen it only minutes before. The vibro-massagers whispered and moved over my body. And I could hear the murmur of the atomics deep inside the hull, driving the Far Centaurus on through the unending night of space. I moved my head sharply. Instantly, a black wave of indescribable nausea swept over me. My senses reeled up. My head pounded miserably. And then there was nothing but the deep, cool, merciful blackness for a while. A retentive memory sustained me on my second wakening. I didn't make that mistake twice. I moved nothing except my eyes. The massagers whispered on, restoring the life and the flow to my body. And while they did do, I looked at the chronometer on the bulkhead. It read 54 years, 7 months, 1 week, 3 days. I didn't bother with the hours, the minutes, and the seconds. I was already sufficiently impressed. Under the massagers, I felt the life flowing back in me. And for the longest time, it was sheer agony. But then, after a while, it became a normal, healthy glow, and I was able to think. I wept then, as men do, for all that might have been and never was. And then when I got over my crying jag, I went about my duties. Atomics all check out 100% now. Fuel contents, enough to cross the galaxy, let alone the short haul to nearby neighborly Centaurus. Let's see, air, a little high on oxygen content. At least it is if I still know how to take a reading after all this time. Better just readjust the ultraviolet output in the hydroponics tanks. Good, I'll do that. Now, supreme test. Check the other cabins and see if I've got two buddies or if I'm alone on this old scow with a couple of deep space funerals to perform. Well, both sleeping like babies. Oh, then I'm not alone. Great feeling. Yeah, okay, that's it. Everything checks out. Time to sleep again. Just fill in the ship's log and dose myself. Hope I don't chicken out giving myself the needle. But first, just one thing. Even if the book doesn't say anything about it, I'm sure there's no harm. I set the grid, checked the star chart reference, and finally found the sun in the rear teleplates. It was a brilliant orange blaze, far, impossibly far astern. Our life-giving sun, home, was just another star in a universe that offered me 1,000,000 of them on every plate I looked into. And up ahead, Centaurus. Brighter than I'd seen it before. Great blazing Alpha, the blue-white dwarf. Beta, the red giant that made the binary system complete. Proxima, the nearest, and yet the dimmest. A dull red glow on the line of the ecliptic. And then I wanted to sleep and to forget. Next time I woke, a lot more time would have passed. Perhaps it wouldn't be so bad then. The ship is in excellent condition, with all drive units functioning at peak efficiency. A footnote to John and Peter. The grid is set. Look astern and weep. I did. Sweet dreams, Joe. On the second awakening, the starship's alarm bells were ringing frantically. Fortunately for my metabolism, my subconscious had preserved memory patterns of the previous awakening. Although it took all of my willpower to lie quiescent while the massagers did their work over the hours, I managed it. I lay there, feeling the pain of life flow back into me for the second time, while the hideous cacophony of the alarms shrilled through the ship. Then, slowly, actually admiring my own self-control, I opened my eyes and stared at the chronometer. It read 201 years, 2 months, 3 weeks, 1 day. As before, there were hours and minutes and seconds too, but these I ignored, like the small change on the counter when you've just cashed a $1,000 check. Finally, the massagers released me, and I went to the view screens, tripping off the alarm system as I passed in the passage to the control room. The passage that contained the blank, featureless doors of 2 other cabins, wherein my companion slept through the centuries. And at the teleplates, I saw a ship. A starship. Enormous. What? According to the grid, she must be more than a mile long. And ablaze from end to end, hanging there in space, consumed by the blue-white fury of her own reaction motors. But what ship? And from where? She's on our very path, on the space liner between the Sol and Centauri systems. Was she crossing, or was her route the same as ours? Nothing that can be done. Anything that lived in that ship has long since been consumed. And already, drifting astern, dimming, a glowing spark along the trail. But why did she burn? Are we in some way responsible for that blazing pyre? The sadness still moved within me, deep, enhanced by the terrible sight of the dead, blazing starship. I went through my duties slowly, checking everything and finding it good. There were notes in the log from John and Peter. One dated 97 years previously. The other, 51.
The age of miracles is not past. You actually got up without oversleeping. Oh, incidentally, your hydroponics treatment killed the spinach and celery plants. Now we're reduced to cabbage and lettuce in the green vegetable department. A gardener you are not, lunkhead. In recognition of this achievement, I suggest that you buy dinner the first night ashore on Centaurus.
You got yourself a date, Peter. You better remember your ulcer and your bland diet, though. Steamed fish for you, old buddy. Now, what's this from John?
Well done, Joe. Everything good. And it was for you, as the first awakener, to prove the validity of our experiment. The eternity drug works. And because of this, we know that we'll be the first men to reach another stellar system. Our reunion is something of which I'll think before I go under again at the end of this tour of duty. I've left a note for Peter on his next awakening, up around the 250-year mark. Now, there's a discernible side effect from the drug that perturbs me. Any unusual mental strain seems to bring about a certain imbalance. Watch for this. And above all, no matter what happens, try to keep cool. It could spell the difference between sanity and raving lunacy. Sorry about it, but we're fallible. And we must cope with the unexpected when it shows itself to us. Well, until our next time, yours ever, John.
Dear old brilliant skipper. The brains behind it all. And the mother hen who keeps us together and shepherds us safely to the stars. Thanks for the tip, John. I'll watch it. And you, Mr. Sensitive, you watch it too. I must have misjudged the next dose I gave myself. I overslept. When I came out of the darkness with a hangover like a drumbeat in my frontal region, the chronometer read 502 years, 11 months, 3 weeks, 0 days. And Peter Endicott was standing by my couch, looking the same as he had over 5 centuries before, the night we had lifted off from Earth.
Welcome back, sleepyhead. Looks like you goofed a little that time. Now lie there and don't say a word. Not until the restorative treatment is finished. Just listen. Listen carefully to what I have to tell you and keep cool. We're here, Joe. We're less than 4 weeks out from Proxima Centauri. There are 19 planets in the system. 3 of them are inhabited. Now, I'll fill you in on the details of that in a little while. But first, and for us, most important, John is mad, Joe. A stark, raving, slobbering lunatic. I have him under restraint and sedation in this cabin. There was nothing else I could do, you see. No, don't try to talk. You're not ready yet. You'll have the whole picture in a minute. Well, I suspected something had gone wrong with John when I read his last entry in the log. I think it was a follow-up to your report of sighting the burning ship back at the 200-year mark. It unhinged him, and I think I know why. Joe, John wrote in the log, and I quote, "Of all the things of which I've thought, of all the things for which I've planned, that which was most evident I did not see." John's sensitive, Joe, as you know, and too sensitive for his own good. And what he read into your report, well, it obviously unhinged him. And now I think I know why. Joe, I've been in touch with the inhabited planets of Proxima Centauri. Can you stand the shock, Joe? Nod very slightly if you can take it. Good. Joe, the inhabitants of the Centauri planets speak English.
It was a struggle to hold myself on my couch until the impassive massagers had brought me back to life. But after what seemed like another 5 centuries, they were done with me, and I could escape with Peter to the control room. The radio equipment was alive, humming and crackling, and the space waves were filled with an odd but identifiable English. Then as I watched, Peter Endicott picked up the microphone and spoke.
Proxima A, this is Starship Far Centaurus. Do you read?
Far Centaurus from Proxima A, we read you. What is your message for Proxima A?
Proxima A from Far Centaurus. Another member of our crew, Williams, has emerged from the drug sleep. I ask that you tell him your story as you told it to me. Over.
Mr. Williams, welcome to the Centaurus system. You will be happy to know that there is a planet named for you. Of the 3 planets, one has been named Pelham, another Endicott, and for you, Mr. Williams, there is a small green and gold beauty, the 5th out from the parent star, with 2 encircling moons called Williams. You will be welcome on Williams, Mr. Williams.
What? What's he say?
Listen, Joe. You'll get all the answers, if you can take them.
Tell that guy to keep talking.
Understood, Proxima A. Please continue.
For the benefit of Mr. Williams, I will elaborate. Man is here on the worlds of Centaurus. Man now colonizes the systems of Sirius, Aldebaran, Antares, Polaris, Procyon, and Denebola. We have been here for 450 Earth years, Mr. Williams, ever since the successful star drive was discovered. 50 years after you and your ship left Earth.
What? Oh, no.
And there's more, Joe.
Mr. Williams, the voyage from Earth to Centaurus now takes but 3 hours Earth time. We have 14 regular runs per day to the parent planet.
Ask him about the ship. The burning ship 300 years ago.
All right, Joe. Proxima A. Mr. Williams would like to know of the ship that burned up in the spaceways. The ship he saw.
Ah, yes, the Jean, one of our space liners. She was in space warp when she crossed your trajectory at velocities in excess of the speed of light. She was so close that she stood no chance. Her reactors exploded and she was lost in space. You must not hold yourselves responsible for this. It was not your fault. We have learned by this tragic mistake. Now, because of certain steps taken, there can be no recurrence, Mr. Williams. Mr. Endicott has already told us of the strange affliction which has struck down your commander, Mr. Pelham. You may be pleased to know that our medical science will be able to cure Mr. Pelham, and that there will be no possibility of a relapse. It is a very simple operation. One of our ships is on the point of liftoff now to rendezvous with you. For you, the journey remaining is still some 4 weeks in Earth time. The escort ship will be alongside you in some 10 minutes. Arrangements will be made to transfer Mr. Pelham on board the escort ship for immediate treatment of his slight malady. In the meantime, welcome to Centaurus. The 3 worlds of our system wait to fate you, as they have done for 450 Earth years.
500 years in space for what? To find that the people we left behind when we set out were already here and back again, before I even woke from the first sleep.
Remember what John wrote in the log? That which was most evident I did not see. Joe, John, mad or not, was absolutely right. In all our endeavors, how could we overlook human progress?
The challenge of space. Carling, world brewers of the great American beer Carling Black Label, presents another story in the dramatic series, The Challenge of Space.
Good evening. This is Charles B. Ryan, Director of Space Research here at the New Mexico Center. In our conquest of space with its scientific and engineering triumphs, we must never forget the purpose of our activities, that exploration of the near planets is being undertaken in peace for all mankind. That there may be a danger of overlooking this in the purely scientific search for knowledge, we underline in our story tonight, a clapper for the bell. One of the most unexpected discoveries to date in our exploration of the moon were the reverberations that ensued when the lunar module of Apollo 12 was deliberately crashed on the lunar surface. The echoes picked up by the seismometers that had been set up during the mission continued for nearly half an hour, an effect totally unlike anything experienced on Earth. It caused great controversy at subsequent discussions by scientists.
Gentlemen, the first part of this meeting has covered very fully the facts that we have on hand concerning the moon echoes and the theories of members of this scientific body to explain this phenomenon. We now come to discussion on ways and means to further investigate this effect, and I call on Simon Avery, who has worked out a method to do this. Simon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, we've all agreed that the suggestion to crash the lunar module on the moon to create a measurable man-made impact on the surface was taken in the best scientific tradition, and that its results have been outstanding. And to further our understanding of the structure of the moon, this is obviously a line of investigation that must be followed up. We now have 2 seismometers set up to relay information on moon tremors, one at Tranquility Base, the other, the Ocean of Storms. 1,200 kilometers, say 750 miles apart, on the visible side of our satellite. What we need now is a measurable impact from the far side of the moon. And I say that the best way of achieving this would be by means of an atomic explosion.
That is a total idiotic idea.
Order! Mr. Avery has the floor.
Chair, I submit that Mr. Avery's suggestion is monstrous and irresponsible.
The meeting will come to order. Mr. Wentworth, if you have something to say, you can have the floor later.
I have plenty to say.
Later. Please proceed, Simon.
Thank you, Chairman. I repeat that an atomic explosion of a known force in a precise location on the side of the moon away from the Earth would give a series of seismic readings that would give a clear indication of the materials in the moon's substrata and an indication of its total composition.
It will also show the scientific body of the United States to be totally lacking in the fundamental stability necessary to the exploration of space.
Order! Order! Mr. Wentworth, you are out of order. If I have to remonstrate with you once more, I shall have to ask you to leave the meeting.
Chair, I submit that we've now heard Simon Avery's proposition. And I would like to make this a dialogue between Simon and myself.
Sure. James, you can have the floor when Simon is finished.
Mr. Chairman, respectfully, I shall be quite happy to make this a question and answer session between Jimmy Wentworth and myself.
Very well, James. Come up here on the rostrum. But be careful how you phrase your remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I state briefly my objections to Simon's scheme?
Go ahead.
Very well, James, but make it brief. This is a discussion, not a monologue.
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, I'd like to point out that to our knowledge, an atomic weapon has never yet been launched into Earth orbit or into space. That this aspect is governed by international agreement, and necessarily so. That an atomic weapon has never, in consequence, been detonated under the airless conditions of space. That such an explosion would possibly endanger human or extraterrestrial life. That the ground surface would be contaminated for future moon landings. Mr. Chairman, I think that's it.
Good. Well, carry on, Simon.
Sure. Now, James, the international agreement governing the use of atomic weapons in space would be their military use.
Primarily, yes.
What I'm proposing is a peaceful scientific project.
Yeah, you'd have a job convincing the Reds of that.
Perhaps. But surely we can act on our own responsibility.
I say it would be irresponsibility. Long before we got to the moon itself with a manned craft, there were suggestions that we explode an atomic bomb on the moon so that we could see the flash. Well, what could be more irresponsible than that?
I'm proposing this with a serious scientific purpose.
I oppose the earlier suggestion. I oppose this.
Evidently. Well, now, to take your next point, do you suppose that an atomic weapon would work in a vacuum?
Well, it is yet to be proved. We would certainly know nothing of the blast, radiation, and thrust effects.
I think it would work. And an explosion would give us the rest of the data you're short of. Detonating the bomb on the far side of the moon would make sure that no human life would be endangered. And we have yet to prove that there is any extraterrestrial life. We haven't met any moon men yet.
And what about contamination of the moon's surface affecting future astronauts?
I fancy it's going to take a long time, at least several decades, before we'll be ready to explore the far side of the moon. Following the atomic explosion of Bikini Atoll, in less than 2 decades, life is returning to the atoll. Satisfied?
Very far from satisfied. Part of man's genius has been directed towards weapons of mass destruction. And although an atomic bomb now classes as the smallest of these, it's still capable of immense damage. Now, so far, no weapons at all have been carried into space. Yet you propose using one of the most dangerous...
For a purely scientific purpose. In effect, the moon gave out reverberations like a bell. What I want to do is to provide an adequate clapper for that bell.
Then just make sure that in this crazy scheme, you don't sound the knell of space exploration and the whole human race.
Wentworth is always opposed to this. He's been against this life from the very beginning.
Well, General Millerhouse, you've had a chance to read the minutes of the meeting of the Advisory Committee on Space Developments. What are your comments?
Mr. President, Wentworth was quite right. This proposal is irresponsible. It's downright dangerous, too.
Avery has prepared his case very well, and he knows that there is no military aspect to his proposal.
How much trust and understanding does he think there is in international politics?
He's a dedicated scientist, General, with a single aim in view. And a majority of the committee are behind him on that basis.
But have they considered the effect on world opinion, on Russian opinion?
No, they don't have to. I do, and you do.
So, it's over to us. Well, I say no.
I asked you to come in here today because if this thing goes through, it would be up to you to prepare the nuclear device, the atomic bomb.
Yes, Mr. President.
And I wanted to get your opinion on the proposal.
Now, you have that, sir.
Yes, thank you. But we're not going to be able to stop this thing from going through.
What?
I know how you feel, I know. But as a soldier and one who's never taken an active part in politics, you wouldn't perhaps realize the intolerable pressures that can build up against a man in the office of president over something like this.
I see, sir.
I don't think you do, quite. In the first place, I haven't got a majority of my own in the Senate.
That's I know, Mr. President, but surely a debate and a free vote...
The result would be the same, with a strong lobby in favor of trying this experiment. Think of the prestige if the USA could be the first to say definitely what exactly is the structure of the moon.
And our being the first to send an atomic weapon into space.
Exactly. Now, if I try to throw this project out, and I don't succeed, I prejudice my entire program for the nation. Politically, it isn't worth it.
I see, sir. Then it will have to go through.
Reluctantly, I shall have to authorize sending a nuclear device to the moon. Now, there's one thing more. I put a call through on the hotline to the Russian premier, and I'd like you to stay for that conversation.
Why, certainly, sir.
There's an additional earpiece fitted to the phone. You can listen in.
But I can't speak Russian.
No more than I can, but the premier has an excellent command of English. Spot on time. Hello?
Mr. President, we have the Kremlin on the line. The Soviet Prime Minister. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Mr. Prime Minister.
Good day, Mr. President. There must be something of extreme urgency afoot to justify this call.
Well, it's a good thing to maintain personal contact between us. But As a matter of fact, Mr. Prime Minister, something has come up that I would wish to avoid any misunderstanding about.
It is the proposal to explode an atomic bomb on the moon.
Well, yes, I'd expected you to keep yourselves fully informed on that one, so it'll save me a great deal of explaining.
I'm afraid that it will take a great deal of explaining to justify breaking the international agreement on atomic weapons in space.
But that agreement covered military weapons only, Mr. Prime Minister. We have a purely peaceable intention in what we propose to do.
Mr. President, can you really envisage a peaceable atomic bomb?
Yes, I can, in the use to which this one is to be put. It is purely in the interests of examining the moon's structure.
Both our nations have been able to do this. At least the surface structure. You yourselves have now many samples.
That is true, but they don't tell us everything that we want to know, Mr. Prime Minister. We wish to investigate these strange reverberations.
So you tell us. It could just as easily be that you want to see the effect of an atomic explosion in space.
No, I assure you. It is purely for the purpose you know about.
But surely you can't expect the Soviet Union to just agree to what you propose. For one thing, it would mean that a nuclear weapon would be carried across the territory of our countries and many other countries. On behalf of all the people that this represents, we cannot agree.
In that case, I'm afraid that this is going to create a very difficult position for me.
I would not expect your sympathy in any situation that developed in the Soviet, where I personally was concerned. Can we please discuss purely your intentions, your illegal intentions, and their relation to international law?
We are not discussing international law, but an agreement between nations. That is rather a different thing, eh?
Do I take it that you feel free to go on with this act of setting aside a solemn agreement that your country has signed?
I still hope that I can obtain your agreement to what we propose to do for science, so that you can participate in the results.
The matter is not so vital to us that we cannot wait until our own explorations give us the answer to the structure of the moon. I cannot agree to your overflying of our territory and that of friendly nations with an atomic weapon. No.
Then, Mr. Prime Minister, it is probable that because of the situation here, we will have to go ahead with the project without your agreement.
Then it is my duty to advise you, Mr. President, that we shall view it as an act of deliberate aggression against the countries of the Eastern Bloc. And if there is any unforeseen incident, then it will be construed as an act of war.
Gentlemen, as president of this country, the final decision on whether to go ahead with this moon-sounding experiment rests with me. And that's why I've asked you two principal members of the scientific committee and General Millerhouse, representing the military side, to come for a final discussion before taking that decision.
Mr. President, as a member of the Scientific Advisory Committee, I understood from my contacts in the Senate that the decision had already been taken.
Mr. Avery, the final decision is mine.
Yes, sir.
And it is still my opinion, strongly expressed in committee, that this test should never take place. Not for the use of a nuclear device, at least.
But I would remind Mr. President that the majority of the committee did not agree with Mr. Wentworth's view.
Here, it would only be fair to say that my advice to the President from a military viewpoint is that the test is both undesirable and dangerous.
You see, Mr. Avery, that the decision, or the opinions, rather, of both your colleagues and mine are by no means favorable.
I have plenty of support for my scheme, sir.
I am aware of that, Mr. Avery. And I appreciate that the conducting of this experiment would have a scientific value. But the situation is fraught with difficulties and dangers that I would like you and your colleagues to withdraw your demand for it to take place.
I am sorry, Mr. President, sir. I am not in a position to do that.
Very well. Then the experiment will go ahead.
Mr.
I'm sorry, Mr. Wentworth. I have made my decision. General Millerhouse will deliver a nuclear device to Cape Kennedy as I have already instructed and will give you every technical assistance that you require. And I trust, Mr. Avery, that nothing does go wrong.
This is Alex McEwen speaking to you from the control room at Cape Kennedy in a worldwide broadcast of the Voice of America. There is an unusual element of drama here today in the launch of the second Saturn V rocket in 5 days. Because instead of the usual crew of astronauts, this rocket is spearheaded with a nuclear device. Military authorities, checked out by civilian scientists, were responsible for mounting the bomb before the rocket left on its mile-long journey to the launching pad where it now stands. I have here Simon Avery, a leading scientific member in this project, to comment on this historic event. Simon, will you give us your views on this launching? Well, Alex, this experiment truly is an historic milestone in the research program for the moon. But we mustn't let today's launching get out of perspective. An important part of the experiment, and the only thing that'll have made it possible, was the firing of the first Saturn V rocket, which is now placed a control satellite in orbit around the moon.
Without that satellite, it would be impossible to direct the vehicle carrying the bomb accurately to its ground target. Is that right?
Yes, that is so, Alex. Working as we shall be on the far side of the moon, we shall depend on relayed signals to locate the energy source in its ground position accurately. I don't think we should use the military term bomb or target in this context.
Nevertheless, Simon, we understand that this is simply an atomic bomb. And this is the first time ever that such a device will have been flown by a space vehicle.
Yes, that is so.
And surely there must have been some reaction from the Soviet bloc.
Well, they don't like it very much.
So there is an international undercurrent running beneath the tension of the launch here today.
We hope that when we release full details of our findings to other nations, they will see the value of it. But I would stress that this is purely a routine launch, and we do not consider there to be any danger at all in carrying it out.
We have liftoff. Yes, we have liftoff. This is the most crucial moment in the history of launchings at Cape Kennedy, when a rocket carrying an atomic head instead of a live crew leaves the pad. Any deviation from its normal flight path at this stage could lead to a fantastic calamity. But the rocket is climbing away and is just clearing the tower and tilting to its climbing angle. It would seem we have a perfect launch. And the ground crew here have never wanted a perfect launch so much. Now, as the Saturn V, with its dangerous load, dwindles against the blue sky of this lovely day, I bring to the microphone James Wentworth, one of the scientific team concerned with this venture. Jimmy, a quick comment from you.
Alex, I share your relief at the clean, safe launch that we've just seen here, and I hope that the rest of the mission goes through without any hitches.
It's common cause, Jimmy, that if it had been left to you and a few others on your committee, this experiment would never have got underway.
Yes, it's quite right, Alex, but the final decision was taken by the President on advice from Avery and the rest of the committee, and the country must abide by that.
And this is the spirit that has put a fine edge on America's space efforts. Thank you, Jimmy Wentworth. We have ignition of the second stage of Saturn V climbing towards its flight path over the Atlantic towards Earth orbit.
I'm glad you came along, General. Did you have any difficulties at Kennedy the other day?
No, none, Mr. President. We had a great deal of help from the project scientists and technicians there, and the whole installation went without a hitch.
Uh-huh. Well, I wish I could say the same for the international situation. 3 countries dismissed our diplomatic representatives, and another 5 sent home Peace Corps workers.
And the Soviets, sir? Naturally, they now reserve the right to launch their own nuclear weapons into space.
Yeah, that is about our biggest loss. Can't do anything about that.
And, on the home front, Mr. President?
Oh, well, General, that's good news. I've been forced into this experiment, but I'll be able to hold my own with more vital issues. So that's everything at the moment.
Good. Well, A capsule with the device aboard goes into lunar orbit tonight, ready for guiding into position.
A critical time for both of us. Join me here tonight, then, and we'll see this thing through to the finish.
And it is most important that the capsule is guided into these exact lunar coordinates if the experiment is to succeed, Alex.
I see, Simon. With a blast of this magnitude, I think the layman could be forgiven for thinking that perhaps a few kilometers here or there wouldn't be of vital importance.
Not so, Alex. This is a scientific experiment that has to be as closely controlled as anything that's carried out in a laboratory. Accurate positioning is vital to accurate measurement of the passage of shock waves through the interior of the moon. It's on this that the whole experiment depends.
Thank you, Simon Avery. In these last few tense moments before the first ever atomic explosion in outer space, every man connected with the control of the venture is at his control desk. But we just have time to ask Jimmy Wentworth what effects he anticipates from the megaton explosion on the moon's surface.
I must say, Alex, I feel very uneasy, and my uneasiness increases with each moment that ticks away before the blast.
Since this feeling evidently isn't shared by your colleagues, can you put it into specific terms, Jimmy?
Yes. Escape velocity from the moon is very much lower than from the Earth, Alex, and approximate calculations have shown that there is some danger of fallout from the explosion actually being put into orbit around the moon.
15 seconds to go before detonation.
There is an unbearable degree of tension here in the control room as the seconds tick away to the instant of blast to take place over the deserted plain on the far side of the moon. All eyes are glued to the red light that will flash on as the mighty weapon ignites.
10 seconds. Positioning accurate to within half a kilometer.
Ground zero, the target area. After a flight of more than 250,000 miles is only a few hundred meters.
5 seconds.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Hello? There's no red light showing. Avery, what about the red light?
Wait for it. Wait for it.
It hasn't gone off. It hasn't gone off. The bomb has not gone off.
After flying a copybook mission, the device failed to ignite when within only a few hundred meters of its ground location.
You did a good job, General.
To your instructions, Mr. President.
I suppose I was worried right up to the last moment that it would go off after all.
Oh, no chance of that, sir. Not the way we rigged it.
It was a genuine atomic bomb, I suppose.
Oh, well, nothing else would have satisfied the scientists, sir. You couldn't fool them that way. But obviously, they had no knowledge of how the bomb was detonated. Only the military knew that. And we made sure it couldn't explode.
Well, it saved the day politically. So, thanks again.
And still, nobody can say for certain whether an atomic bomb would go off in outer space. We can always use that as an excuse. But I suppose pressure will build up for the same thing to be done in future years, sir.
Well, that will be in a few years, General. Let's worry about that when the time comes, shall we?
Yes, to keep interplanetary space free from weapons and from international rivalry will be the only way to ensure man's survival on this planet and on those we're setting out to explore. And now, until next week, this is Charles B. Ryan wishing you all good night.
The challenge of space. Carling, world brewers of the great American beer Carling Black Label, presents another story in the dramatic series The Challenge of Space.
Good evening. This is Charles B. Ryan, Director of Space Research here at the New Mexico Center. The authorities responsible for space exploration projects, both here and in other countries, normally approach their tasks on a completely practical basis. So, in our story tonight, it was surprising to find a high-ranking officer of the International Space Service asking the question, where was Atlantis?
When the day is gone and the sun sets fire to the faraway hills, when the rivers flow red in the twilight and the long shadows slowly fade into darkness, when the action's over and stories are retold round a log fire, that's when a man needs a beer. Carling Black Label, husky, lusty, and strong. The man's brand. Extra strength Carling Black Label is now brewed right here in South Africa, so you don't lose a day of that lusty, lively taste Carling is world famous for. If you've got a thirst, put our brand on it. Carling Black Label, brewed for men in 18 breweries around the world.
Commander Robin Selwell of the International Space Service looked at General Corder in some amazement at the question. He'd always known Corder to be a practical officer, efficient in building up the resources of his command, and with a keen understanding of the human problems involved in space travel. To find him dabbling in the realms of mythology was so unexpected that Selwell thought it might be some kind of a catch question. So he approached it cautiously.
Do you want a serious answer, General Corder?
Yes, Robin, I do. Where was Atlantis?
Well, sir, I don't know much about it, but I don't think anyone really knows where it was, or even if it existed.
I knew you wouldn't let me down, Robin. You at least know the salient facts. That scientists have located the mythical continent variously in the Atlantic, off the mouth of the Mediterranean in the region of the Canary Islands, or as an island in the Aegean Sea off Greece.
Nothing has ever been found lying beneath any of these waters to suggest that any of them might have been the site of the supposed lost continent, General. No traces of human handiwork or anything.
Yeah, that's true. Wouldn't you say that was significant?
Well, I'd say it was to be expected, since it's doubtful if any such place existed.
We think that it does exist.
Did exist, surely. We're talking of something that was supposed to have disappeared, ages ago.
Oh, I don't know how long that'll be, Robin, but our figure is 12,000 years ago.
Yes, sir.
Send Lieutenant Martin in, will you? He should be waiting in the outer office.
Right away, sir.
Thank you. I'd like you to meet Alan Martin, Robin.
Lieutenant Martin? Is he a new man here?
He's on special assignment. The rank is honorary, but it kind of puts him under our direction.
Oh, yeah, a civilian.
A scientific archaeologist, actually.
You sent for me, General Corder?
Yes, Alan. Lieutenant Alan Martin, Commander Robin Selwell.
How do you do, Commander?
Lieutenant?
Alan, I've told Commander Selwell of our belief that the so-called lost continent of Atlantis does exist. Perhaps you'd like to amplify that?
Yes, sir. Well, through many centuries, there has always been the belief that more than just folklore or imaginative flights of fancy lay behind the consistent reports concerning Atlantis. Plato located it as lying outside the Pillars of Hercules, or in the Atlantic off the Straits of Gibraltar. In other words...
But, Lieutenant, most of us left Plato behind at school.
Well, I haven't finished yet, Commander. Our Russian friends have one of the oldest known papyrus rolls concerning an expedition that was dispatched to find Atlantis.
You can't tell me that the hard-headed Reds are collecting tales of mythology.
This was one of the items they took over from the Tsar. The pharaoh of the time dispatched an expedition to search for Atlantis and traces of their own ancestors. But it returned after 5 years, having found nothing.
Well, I'm not really surprised. But look, this is the 21st century. What's all this got to do with us?
Well, we're coming to that. I told you that we think we know where Atlantis is.
Yeah, but where?
On Mars.
On Mars?
It is rather a startling conception, isn't it? But Alan will tell you why we think this is.
Yes, sir.
Well, Commander, I'm sure you're quite well acquainted with the fact that the maps of Mars, poor as they are at present, have for many centuries shown an area designated as Atlantis.
Well, of course I know that. Surface features have to be given some kind of a reference. Surely this is just being given the name of an Earth feature, if it amounts to that.
We think that it's the other way around.
What?
That Atlantis always was on Mars. And it's this that's referred to in our mythology.
Yeah, but listen,
before you say any more, sir, this is an ancient map of the Atlantis of legend. I won't say where we got it.
Have the Ruskies checked up on their museums lately?
One wonders, but if you like to compare the map with this latest survey picture of the area of Mars known as Atlantis...
Hey, look at that. They're practically the same.
There's little doubt about it. This formation of 3 craters, a ridge running slantwise through the area, a single peak, well, they tally almost exactly.
But I don't believe it. The surveyor picture is genuine. So the map you've got must be a fake. You're being taken in by some humorist in Moscow.
I didn't say that's where we got the map, Commander.
No, but you didn't deny it.
Robin, we're keeping our own counsel on this. But what would you say of a commander of powerful forces who sent out an expedition involving a long and complicated journey on nothing more tangible than a story or a supposition?
General Corder, I'd say that he was making a very long shot at something that would be difficult to explain to a higher authority.
And privately you'd think he'd gone nuts, eh? Well, that ancient pharaoh could do what he liked. There wasn't any higher authority than him. But I'm risking my reputation on sending you to Mars, Robin.
To Mars, you are?
Yep, and I have permission from higher up.
You have, sir? Then what's so important about this mission? I mean, surely it's more than just an archaeological expedition to another planet.
Yeah, you're right, it is. We believe that the Atlanteans, whoever they were, had the secret of an anti-gravity force.
What?
And that is what you and Lieutenant Martin are going to find.
There's your target, Robin, between the center grid and the viewer. We're in a parking orbit that'll keep us right above it.
You've done a very nice job on positioning, Andy.
It's been done before. But what's our interest in this spot on the Martian surface?
Mine, practically nil. Are you still keen on the mission, Alan, after all those weeks in flight?
Of course. But perhaps you'd better tell Major Sinclair just what we're engaged on in this exploration.
You tell him. Still sounds like a fairy story to me.
I'm sorry you feel that way, sir, because we have it from ancient writings in Sanskrit that the Vimana definitely did exist.
Vimana? What are they?
Flying machines of 6,000-odd years ago.
Aren't you sorry you asked, Andy?
It's an answer that I never expected. But go on, Alan. How are they supposed to work?
Well, by some sort of an anti-gravity field. We think that the knowledge was passed on by the former inhabitants of Atlantis.
And we're above the Martian area called Atlantis, is that it?
That's about it, Andy.
But that would suppose that the Martians had been to Earth in ages past.
And we've now come to Mars. In fact, we've been mapping and exploring the planet for some time now.
So you think it wouldn't have been impossible for Earth to have had visitors, eh?
I'm not speculating. The task of this mission is to land on the area of Mars called Atlantis.
Which is purely a practical engineering and space travel exercise.
And that's true. Then Robin and I are to carry out a survey of ground features.
Which will be one mountain peak, 3 large craters, and a lot of very dusty desert.
And if it's possible, to try to determine if there is an even force of gravity here. And if not, well, what is affecting it?
I must say that item 3 is a bit of a big jump from the other 2.
Oh, it's merely a scientific investigation. If there is nothing in it, then that's the end of the matter.
Aye, lad. But they won't be able to say that you haven't tried.
Tell me, has there been any curiosity on the part of the rest of the crew about our mission?
No, Robin. They're a bit curious as to why a commander of the space fleet should have been sent on the mission, and find it a bit strange that you should have been backed up by a lieutenant and not a more senior officer, since it's obvious that you're both working together.
Well, if they get really curious, just tell them that I needed someone to tell me some bedtime stories. All right, Andy. Alan and I will get some rest, and then we'll go down to the surface and get on with preparing this nil report that Alan's going to write for the powers that be back home.
All systems check out okay, Robin.
All right, Alan. We'll go out in a few minutes. Our descent module seems to be resting on a solid area. I'll contact Sinclair in the command ship and tell him what we're going to do. Atlantis base ship to command ship, over.
Thought you said there was no such place as Atlantis, Commander.
There's a firm enough surface here, Andy, but I'm not committing myself to anything else at the moment.
Aye, well, just make sure that the base ship is resting firmly, Robin.
Yeah, I'll confirm that as soon as we leave it, Andy. Then we're going to take a look around.
Roger. Don't go too far from your base, though.
Why not, Andy? What's the matter? Our life support systems give us a fair range.
We can observe 1 or 2 dust storms on the surface. We can't say for certain that they're in your area, but just watch the horizon, eh?
Okay, barometer seems steady enough at the moment. Visibility's good. But I'll confirm security of the ship and keep in touch. Okay, over and out.
What is the procedure in the event of a dust storm, Robin?
We have to get back to the ship and pressurize. Then we extend the stabilizing arms. There's no danger of the ship being blown over. The wind pressure's not great enough. But you wouldn't want to be caught outside, that's for sure. So we'd better make our first trip onto the surface while it's calm. This is my 3rd landing on Mars, and I still don't like the purple sky.
It's magnificent. I've never seen anything quite like it.
It's unusual, I suppose. All those miles of red desert soon get you down. I told you what you'd find here.
We seem to be in exactly the right place, Commander. There's the single peak we were expecting.
One bearing observation won't be enough. But you see the lowest escarpment on the northern horizon?
Yeah.
Well, that's the largest of your 3 craters. And there, southwest, you can just see the tumbled edge of the other. Well, the third's too far away to be visible. Hey, let's see your map.
From what you've just said, we should be right here.
Where do you imagine your Atlantis is? Atlantis, with its cities and its anti-gravity flying machines.
Well, according to the map and the photographs, just here.
Then you got a better imagination than I got. All you got here is an unbroken expanse of red dust for hundreds of kilometers. One peak and a couple of crater rims sticking up like escarpments in this infernal purple sky.
Commander, I can't see the smaller of the 2 crater rims. It's all hazy over there.
What? Hey, yeah, you're right, fella. Come on, back to the ship, quick as you can.
Well, what is it? A dust storm?
Yeah, as far as I know. But I've never seen one from ground level before.
So you've never actually lived through one in a grounded spaceship?
No, but don't worry. I know the theory. And with any luck, we'll get out of this one. If we don't, we're going to be the first human beings to die on Atlantis.
Know something? In these mellow after-supper hours, there's nothing like a beer to make a man feel good, relaxed and good. And there's no beer like a Carling Black Label. Carling is the man's brand, the great American beer that's now brewed right here in South Africa, so you don't lose a day of that lusty, lively taste Carling is world famous for. Got a thirst? Then why not get your hands on a Carling right now? Cold and frosty in the can. Man, oh man, isn't that just what real beer is all about? No wonder Carling is enjoyed by men in more than 50 countries around the world. Go for the man's brand. Go for Carling. Carling Black Label.
Well, it looks as if your theory was quite correct, Commander.
Yeah. Our ship hasn't moved an inch. Looks as if we must have been down on bedrock. But what a way to spend 48 hours. Cut off from everything and everyone in a gritty red fog.
Well, you can't complain about it being gritty in here.
Oh, no, you're right. We got the cabin pressurized to several Martian atmospheres, so nothing can... Anyway, no, what I'm complaining about is the boredom.
Well, it wouldn't have been so bad if we could have worked on the project. But our information on Atlantis is so sketchy.
It wouldn't make adequate directions for a good walk back home, let alone here on Mars.
Well, I've written out part of my report.
You could ride out all of it without waiting for the dust storm to subside. Then we can get back into orbit and push off for home.
Well, I've just written up to the point where we got back into the spaceship, reestablished cabin pressure, and extended the stabilizing arms.
Well, that's a scientific fact anyway.
You know, Robin, I'm rather puzzled that the ship is standing on solid rock in an area of deep sand.
Well, we're on one edge of an outcrop. I noticed that while we were examining the ship for security. You get the same sort of thing in the desert areas on Earth.
Yeah, I suppose so. Shows that the sand can't be too thick, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it could.
Oh, the wind's going down.
Yeah. Looks like it's coming to an end. Let's see if we can contact the command ship. Mars Atlantis base ship commander to command module. Do you read me? Over.
Hello, Atlantis base ship. Reading your strength 3. How are things? Over.
Hello, Andy. We're in good shape. Looks like the storm's blowing itself out.
We hadn't been able to raise you, but we weren't really concerned. You told us you were in the ship, so there was nothing to worry about. Now, what's the next move?
Alan, what now?
Well, once the dust is settled, we take another look outside, sir.
Andy, we'll go along with the mission as far as we can. And then, so help me, we're coming home. I've had enough of this particular spot to last me for the next 12,000 years. Okay, this is as high as we go. It's all the grandstand you're going to need to give this area the lowdown.
Well, how high is this peak, do you think?
1,000 meters, not much more. Ground features tend to get a bit eroded with these dust storms. You saw what 2 days of it did to our base ship.
Yeah. Well, the visibility's good again. Hey, Robin, is that the rim of the third crater, the one we couldn't see before?
No. No, I don't think it can be.
It's in the correct direction.
Yeah, but that crater lies about 15 or 20 kilometers away. I doubt if we'd be able to see it anyway.
Well, what is it then?
Well, it seems to me like a wall.
Robin, I thought so too, but I wanted to see what you made of it. It wasn't visible the other day.
No, I definitely looked in that direction. There was nothing there. There was just sand.
And our base ship is up on a bit of a rise.
So we definitely have seen whatever it is, if it had been visible. It wasn't.
So it must have been buried in the sand, and the storm scoured it out. Come on, let's get over there.
Hello, Atlantis spaceship. This is the command ship here. What are you two discussing down there? Where are you off to now?
This is a time to be non-committal, Andy, but we think the storm has uncovered some sort of a ground feature by blowing away the sand. We're going across to investigate.
Is it far?
It's about 3 kilometers or so. It's a bit difficult to tell.
Man, what is it like, this thing you found?
Andy, I said this is a time to be non-committal, and I meant it. Do you expect me to tell you fairy stories? Why aren't you saying, I told you so? Whoever may have put it here, this is most certainly the remains of a building.
But, it's more than that, Robin. Only part of the structure's been exposed, but it's on a tremendous scale.
Yeah, it looks to me a bit like some of the ancient Egyptian temples.
Well, at least only in scale. But there's nothing on Earth that really resembles this.
Yeah, except those steps. Worn a little by the passage of feet, wouldn't you say?
Oh, no, sir, I wouldn't say. It isn't scientific. They're a bit shallow for us. We can take them 2 at a time in our spacesuits.
Yeah, but you'd almost expect somebody or something to come out of one of those doorways.
Well, not with them blocked with sand like that.
No, well, no, but scientific way of putting it or not, you must have the feeling that the people who left here once might be coming back.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Robin. I always used to get that feeling when I visited ancient ruins. But I can tell you that these are quite unique in my experience.
To heck with that, in my experience, too.
I'm sure. But I wonder where these steps lead to.
Well, brother, we'll soon find out. We're coming up to the top now.
There. Hey, we're well above the level of the plane.
Yeah, but still below the level of the ridge where the base ship is resting. Yeah, you can see it clearly.
And the steps seem to have led up to where this observation platform, I suppose you'd call it, overlooks a big square paved area. What do you make of that?
That is a landing and takeoff area.
Why are you so sure?
That's what it suggests to me as an astronaut. More, I would say. A launching area. I could get the base ship in here easily.
It seems to be flat enough.
Yeah, and big enough.
It seems to be marked out in some fashion. You see, a different colored stone has been used to make a pattern of some kind in the paving.
Yeah, well, I'll leave you to sort out the patterns. I'm going to have a look round.
Robin?
Yeah?
Could you really fly the base ship over to here?
What? Yes, of course I could.
Without using up too much fuel?
Well, I would be cutting it a bit fine with our ascent motor burn, but I'd only need to just lift off. I could maneuver it in here on the thrusters. But I'd need a good reason for doing it.
Well, I couldn't give you any good reason, but I got a hunch.
Well, we haven't any good reason for being here in the first place. Okay, I'll go and bring it over.
Sinclair to Atlantis spaceship. Why are you changing your location? Over.
You didn't hear most of our conversation, Andy. We were out of relay range of the ship, but we've just put up a space first. Alan Martin looked on while I showed him how me, the new Atlantean, can fly a base ship.
Didn't it take you long to become a citizen? I hope you two are taking lots of pictures. I want to see this lot when you're finished exploring.
I'm going up to join Alan on the observation platform. Well, that's what we're using it as anyway.
Roger. We have a fix on the base ship in its new position. Now that you're within the relay range of the ship, leave your transmitters on so that I can monitor you while you're exploring.
Will do. Over and leaving transmission open. Well, Alan, there she sits, dead center on the pad.
Is it, Robin? Is it actually dead center?
And I was just congratulating myself on a nice bit of maneuvering.
Sorry, Robin. I'm not an astronaut. And as an observer, I was just asking if you were in the middle, that's all.
Okay. Well, yeah, it is dead center. But listen, why is it so important?
I couldn't say. No, but did the layout of the paved area here look anything like the sketch that I've made? Sort of a series of arrowheads leading up to where you've got the base ship?
Show me. Yeah, that's right. And then there's this sort of dotted line running in the same direction. And over there, beyond the ship. Yeah, you got it exactly.
Well, I wonder what it all means. I can't see anything directional in the ground features. The peak isn't in line, or the craters.
Well, you wouldn't expect it, would you? A landing or a takeoff area would be marked out for flying references.
Commander, I don't entirely agree. The arrowheads were obviously intended to locate some ground object, but I can't think what the dotted line indicates.
Some flying object?
A satellite, perhaps?
Or a moon?
I haven't seen any moon.
Oh, Phobos and Deimos. Mars has too, but they're so near the surface you could never see them from some parts of the planet. But that's Deimos there, look, just above the horizon.
Yeah, it's going fast.
Well, they have quite a short rotational period.
But it's going in a different direction. Would it ever come directly over here?
We can get the command ship to check it out on the computer. But I should imagine it would. It progresses. It works its way a bit further over on each revolution.
How long before it is likely to pass overhead?
Yeah, we can find out. Hello, Andy. Do you read us?
Aye. That'll be 18 hours, Robin. How's that for service?
Thanks, Andy. Is that a wild guess?
No, a wild guess by computer.
Well, then that's good enough for me. Alan, we got plenty of time to have a good look round these ruins, and I'm not missing the opportunity, so come on and keep your camera working. Alan, admitting that a circular tour of an Atlantean city, which seems to be all steps and galleries, is a tiring business, why do you want us to stay in our flight chairs a full 12 hours before takeoff?
It's just a hunch I've got, Commander. I can't give you any good reason. I'm sorry, sir. I can only say that the sight of the moon moving steadily nearer and nearer has given me an idea.
Yeah, I've known many a good man get ideas by moonlight, but for rather different reasons.
Yeah. Well, I'm not used to these odd conditions on other planets as you are, Commander.
If it means anything to you, on this pass, the moon Deimos will follow your dotted line right over our base ship here. Whoever laid this area out was a real expert on local astronomy. Yeah, I can't see it now. It must be...
Hey!
What?
We're moving.
Impossible. There's no wind.
No, the G-forces are beginning to build up. Commander, we're going up!
For heaven's sake! We're being pulled up into orbit by one of those Martian moons. That must be what your anti-gravity stories were all about. Streaking around Mars in the wake of this moon now for 24 hours. If Andy Sinclair can't locate us, we shall orbit here for... Well, until our oxygen runs out.
Is there any chance Major Sinclair will be able to track us?
It depends on how the aerials are aligned. Although if we're screened by the moon, he may never find us.
Hello, Atlantis module. I'm right behind you. I'm in orbit with Deimos, too.
What? It's Andy. It's great to hear your voice, Andy. Andy, where are you?
I told you, right behind you. Can't you see my flashing lights?
Oh, it's too bright, Robin. We can't see anything.
Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I can see you, so I'm coming in for the rendezvous.
Oh, but for Pete's sake, Andy, how did you manage it?
The computer calculated your orbit by tracking your voice transmissions. Fortunately, you seem to have plenty to talk about.
Andy, we found this anti-gravity thing. It must be some sort of an astronomical freak of natural conditions.
Seems likely, Robin.
Yeah, now, if we can get a proper survey party down there...
Not a chance. There's been the greatest sandstorm of all time blowing since you got into orbit. I'm afraid you've lost your takeoff pad, and likely the entire city of Atlantis.
There will come a time when a trip to Mars will be undertaken as a routine exploration mission. And what we shall find there is already a matter of speculation, with even now a need to modify our ideas in the light of actual knowledge. Much that is mundane will come to light, but the discoveries that will add vastly to man's knowledge of the solar system and the universe will make space travel, man's most glorious adventure, more than worthwhile. And now, until next week, this is Charles B. Ryan here at the New Mexico Space Research Center, wishing you all good night.
When the sun burns straight overhead and the grass lies scorched underfoot, when the breeze is gone and the air hangs heavy as lead, when the red dust cakes on a man's face and the dryness bites deep in his throat, that's when a man needs a beer. Carling Black Label beer. Husky, lusty, and strong. Carling is the man's brand. Extra strength Carling Black Label is now brewed right here in South Africa, so you don't lose a day of that lusty, lively taste Carling is world famous for. If you've got a thirst, put our brand on it. Carling Black Label, brewed for men in 18 breweries around the world. Carling invites you to listen again next week to another story in this dramatic series, The Challenge of Space. The Challenge of Space. Carling, world brewers of the great American beer Carling Black Label, presents another story in the dramatic series, The Challenge of Space.
In half a century's time, when man has conquered the near planets and is reaching for the stars out beyond the frontier, It will not be technology that lets him down. It won't be the failure of the hyperspace drive or whatever is invented to beat time and space and the speed of light. The scientists working for the conquest of near and far space won't let the astronauts down, at least very rarely. What will fail, perhaps, will be the men who travel the spaceways, the astronauts themselves, and those immediately behind them, the families, the promoters. We are still weak and fallible beings, you see. We are still ruled by greed and pride and super-egos. Perhaps we always shall be. That is why my story tonight, although it has been told in the past, it will be told again in the future, when a trip to Mars may be as simple as going to see the pyramids along the Nile. Our story tonight is called Another Galaxy.
When the sun burns straight overhead and the grass lies scorched underfoot, when the breeze is gone and the air hangs heavy as lead, when the red dust cakes on a man's face and the dryness bites deep in his throat, that's when a man needs a beer. Carling Black Label beer. Husky, lusty, and strong. Carling is the man's brand. Extra strength Carling Black Label is now brewed right here in South Africa, so you don't lose a day of that lusty, lively taste Carling is world famous for. If you've got a thirst, put our brand on it. Carling Black Label, brewed for men in 18 breweries around the world.
We are in a large public park in central New York. The year is 2115.
Cigarette, Gavin? Oh, I forgot. The great American adventurer will not fool with Lady Nicotine, lest his position amongst the stars be endangered. Really, Gavin.
Abby, what are you... I mean, what are you hoping to... What I'm trying to say is...
Yes, Gavin, darling. What are you trying to say?
Forget it. I think it's time to go back.
It's not time to go back. It's not time to go anywhere. It's time to talk. We haven't talked yet.
I know.
Did you see your father?
Not last night. He was out at the Alpha Base. There was some kind of reunion.
Old space pioneers?
I don't know.
But you do. What else could it have been but old space pioneers?
I don't know, Abby. Can we drop it, please?
How can we drop it? It's exactly because your father, Ambrose P. Rochester, the great Ambrose P. Rochester, is an old space pioneer that we are here today, standing in this great old American park which the establishment is determined to sweep away and replace with steel and plasticellular glass. It's because of your father that we're here now. And I'm more miserable than I've ever been in my life before. And you're standing there like a child, not looking at me.
Only making it worse,
Abby.
I just don't not know what to do, what course of action. Abby, I don't know.
I hope you like America in the year 2215.
Abby, won't you reconsider? Darling, think of it. We'd be together.
No, and no, never.
We'd share it all. The greatest adventure ever to happen. Papa could fix it. I mean, you're a good enough geologist to get the job, Abby. You are.
I have one life to live, and I'm not sacrificing 8 years of it to exist every day of each of those 8 years in a long metal tube, breathing man-made air, eating man-made synthetic food, and coming back, eventually, to a man-destroyed world.
Why? You always say this. Why should the world be destroyed in a century? Why? I just can't understand. Abby,
No, you just can't understand. I can't understand how 7 people can leave the planet Earth in 2115, be away for 8 years, but return to Earth a century later. I can't understand this. But the experts, the old space pioneers, the scientists, say this is so. And so I bow down before them. I revere their words. I hate their words.
Somebody has to do this.
Why?
Because for over 100 years, man has believed that he would never get out of our galaxy, even with the invention of the hyperspace drive. We've always believed that we'd be bound forever in the Milky Way system. Now, well, nobody even knew of the existence of Octavius Centauri. A star cluster in a whole new galaxy. Abby, can't you understand? Man can go out beyond the frontier. Man could at last find other intelligent creatures. If my father wasn't too old, why...
Your father is too old. And so he sacrifices his only son, so that the dream he couldn't realize can come true. And he'll be dead 90 years before you return to Earth. If you ever do come back.
Abby, I can't leave you. I have to tell you, I don't want this thing. I don't want the Octavius project. I don't want this Earth in 100 years. I want it now, and I want you now.
Oh, Gavin, what?
That's the end. Finished.
Tell him.
Father?
Yes, tell him.
I will. He'll be pretty upset now.
I don't care, Gavin. He is an old man. He's lived his life, done what he wanted to. You have to do what you want to do now. I want children. I want to grow things and look after animals and be quiet and happy and even sometimes a little lonely. I want you. I don't want to ever know about the USSS. I don't want to know what other lands it's taking its sickness to. It's not good for a girl's pride. Why? I'm practically going down on my knees to you, asking you not to go out beyond the frontier. I'm saying stay here and give me children and laugh with the people of this time. Not go away for 8 of your years and 100 of this Earth's. Maybe it's selfish, Captain Gavin Rochester, but I'm a simple woman. It just seems to me to be crazy for all that dark, cold space to have you, when you'd be so much more useful down here.
Who is it?
Father?
Gavin, come on in, boy.
Thanks, Father.
Oh, how are you, my boy? How's it going? Sit down, sit down. Bourbon? Are you nervous, boy? Tomorrow's the day of decision, huh? You know, I was talking with Ben Westermaster. How do you feel about maybe never seeing your son again, Ambrose, he says? Ben, I said to him, I'm an old man now. I've done a lot of things, a lot of great things. When I was 10 years old, Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. Then and there, I swore I'd walk on the moon. 15 years later, I did. The years were pretty crowded after that. How's that, boy?
Looks fine, Pa. Listen,
we
Pa.
talked, Ben and me talked for a long time about you and your mother. God rest her soul. I think I made Ben understand about how I feel. You see, he has a boy. He's not a clever kid like you, Gavin. Not clever like you. Not clever like you. He's an ordinary boy. Goes fishing, plays pool, got a nice girl, gonna get married. Yeah, he's a nice boy. But he ain't going to Octavius Centauri. I'm proud of you, son. You got a first. Me? I never had a first. Come on, get rid of that bourbon. There's a bottle of cotton swamp liquor over there just asking it to be drunk. Come on, lose it, Gavin.
Great, Pa. I have something I want to say to you.
Say it, boy, say it. Third trip to Venus. Ambrose P. Rochester, first colonist to Mars. Fourth freighter to touch down there. Commanded by Ambrose P. Rochester. But never a first. That is why I can die at peace.
And that is what I tried so hard to explain to Ben Westermaster, and I really think he was beginning to understand. I really think he was getting the message, Gavin. Oh, I really think he was.
Well, Pa, well, all the tests are over. We've been whittled down to 28. Tomorrow come the final interviews, and, well, I've only a 1 in 4 chance. You have to remember that.
You're on your way to Octavius Centauri, and don't you forget it. There is no chance that you will not be judged. Not only ideal as a candidate for the flight, but you will be second in command as well. Of this, there is no doubt. Drink, boy. Stuff's going to be scarce where you're going, huh?
Pa, I've come to a decision this afternoon. I finally made up my mind. I don't want you to think that what I'm going to tell you, Pa...
Gavin, listen, son.
No, let me talk, Pa. What I'm going to say is going to hurt you. It's going to kick you hard. I know this. But if you love me, you'll respect the motives.
What I want you to know, Gav, is you're going to take one of those 7 places on Project Octavius tomorrow on sheer merit. Merit! Not because your father is Ambrose Rochester.
You'll respect why I've decided like I have. Pa... I'm pulling out.
I only mourn because your mother isn't here. It hurts, boy, but I guess somewhere she'll be watching. Somewhere she'll be proud.
How did you hear what I said? I am pulling out not only of Project Octavius, but out of the whole service.
You made to the moon, and Ben, he said...
Father, listen to what I'm saying. I said I'm pulling out of the project. I'm leaving the service. So stop reminiscing about me and look at me and tell me what you think.
Why are you shouting at me, Gavin?
Pa, do you understand what it is I am telling you?
Sure. You're leaving the space service. Well, that's great. That's great. Well, get drunk, boy, just you and me. Lock the door, because when the Rochesters get drunk...
You do not understand. I am pulling out of the project. I'm going to be a farmer in New England. I'm going to grow maize and potatoes and tomatoes. From now on, I'm never going higher off the earth than the top of a ladder.
Gavin, you're looking funny. You can't...
Yes, Father.
No, Gavin.
Yes, Father.
It's been a strain, boy. Now, keep hold. You drink that.
It has not been a strain. I do not need to keep hold. I do not need to drink this.
What are you talking about?
Know something? In these mellow after-supper hours, there's nothing like a beer to make a man feel good, relaxed and good. And there's no beer like a Carling Black Label. Carling is the man's brand, the great American beer that's now brewed right here in South Africa, so you don't lose a day of that lusty, lively taste Carling is world famous for. Got a thirst? Then why not get your hands on a Carling right now, cold and frosty in the can. Man, oh man, isn't that just what real beer is all about? No wonder Carling is enjoyed by men in more than 50 countries around the world. Go for the man's brand. Go for Carling. Carling Black Label.
No, Gavin, not you, boy. Ben Westermaster's son, yeah, sure. Ben's boy would flop out. He'd flop out of the project because he's not made of the kind of meat we Rochesters are. Yeah, Ben's boy would pull out and cry and weep, and there are men and men. Families and families. You have spirit or you don't. Until the end of time, that's how it's going to be, and there's nothing any man can do about it. The leaders and the followers. Ben's son, why, I can't even recall his name at the moment. Ben's boy is a follower. And you, Gavin, you're a leader. That's all there is to it, boy. The mark is on you. Mark, setting you apart from ordinary men. You have to go, boy.
Pa.
Now, not after all the hopes, all the plans. No, Gavin, no.
I don't...
Some woman, Gavin. A woman bugging you, not letting you rest easy. Some woman, Gavin, putting doubts into your head. Loser, boy. Priest like her. Like a Greek god. Pure, holy. But the reward. One of the most important men on earth.
There won't be anybody to remember me. What'll there be for me on this earth a century from now?
Fame and money and all the most beautiful women there are. They'll fall down from the trees and kiss your feet.
Help me. I can't coordinate it.
I'm going to make the decisions for you, boy, like I always did. You have the brain and the vision, the excellence and the devotion to duty. Your old father provides the will and the power. What a combination. A Rochester will not be satisfied with anything but the best. I tell you what, you will be chosen to command the ship, or you will be second. Less than that, we won't be satisfied, boy. Then you pull out. You hear me?
You mean?
That's right, Gavin.
Hi, Ambrose.
Hey, where'd you get that haircut, Bill?
Well, you know how it is. Elizabeth says, Bill, your hair's getting kind of long, and yakety-yak and so on. So, well, I have a cut that's really fast.
Yeah, I guess we better call you Skinhead.
What can I do for you, Ambrose?
You sit on the selection committee tomorrow night for Project Octavius.
Well, you know I do, Ambrose, but I can't talk about it. That's why I never even asked after Gavin.
Sure. I want that boy through, Bill. And not only just through, I want him commander. He has everything.
Now listen here, Ambrose. This is my...
No, you listen here. You are the most influential member of the panel. What you say goes, and you better say it, Bill, because if not, I shall just mention Blockbuster and the moon trip in '94 and how Dyson happened to get killed.
Ambrose.
Okay, Bill. You got the message. You see, it's not that my boy's not the best man there is. It's just that his nerves might just let him down, that's all. Now, if this happens, you put it right, Bill. You put it right with the panel.
Darling, I've waited all night.
I had to go to the final selection over at Space Headquarters.
You had to... To what? Gavin, you what?
Sweetheart, that was the way I decided to do it. To flop out the final 7 was simpler. It would have satisfied Pa and given me an out. Only the best is good enough for a Rochester. And this Rochester failed.
Oh, you flopped on purpose?
There's no chance. My showing was very poor. I was listless and just not project material. Octavius will be explored without Gavin Rochester. Oh. And I don't give a 2-cent cuss.
Okay.
But don't fly beyond the stars. Let him.
Oh, New England. Oh, Gavin.
New England. Oh, no more New York.
Oh, yes. Oh, Gavin, my darling. I'd have killed myself if you'd gone. Gavin. Let's leave now. Who's that?
Dad.
I thought you'd be with the little lady, Gav. Hi, Abby. How does it feel to kiss the commander of the spacecraft Titan IV on Project Octavius? Destination, another galaxy.
So you see, that's how it's going to be, Abby. I made this promise to myself, quietly to myself, that if they chose me, in spite of what I did, then please do not make it harder for me. I have to tell you now that it is no longer anything to do with my father. I think it's meant to be, Abby.
You couldn't make any sort of decision, could you, Gavin? Poor Gavin.
We never make decisions. Nobody does. We just wait until the balance sways, and what we ought to do is, sort of more clear, you know?
Some of us make decisions. Some of us do. When will the flight be, Gavin, my darling?
The final crash course for which I'll hold a lot of responsibility begins in 10 days. We shall leave Earth in approximately 2 months.
Then, until that time, I shall never let you out of my sight. Even when you're...
You see, I really am so sorry, Abby. It's
no
just...
more, sweetheart. No more now. You have a duty. I respect that. Just as long as we have 2 months together, just make those 2 months last me all my life.
A thin disk about 60,000 light years in diameter. 1/10 of it, this speed of going, the speed of this motion, would be in the neighborhood of, 100,000 miles. Radio waves penetrating this fog. That, of course, limits his vision.
How's it going, boy?
Controlled.
Huh?
Otherwise, the safety
It's tough, Pa. Howard.
Getting close now, huh?
Do it once
I
more,
guess so,
Fran,
Pa.
once more.
I don't see much of you, son. I'd like us to.
I'm sure sorry about that. I guess you know.
Certain cosmic objects, in the event.
I know how it is. You get tired. Program must knock you sideways. But tonight, what about it? We'll have a meal, just you and me.
That would give me pleasure, Pa.
2 weeks. I find it hard to believe.
It's... Abby, this isn't any good, us seeing one another like this. It's too hard. We've got to break now. Anyway, the last 6 days we don't leave the center.
You promised. Your last meal. Last drink on Earth.
Together, you and me. That's 1 week before, and that promise still stands.
People of America, and the people still to be born who will inhabit the Earth when you return in triumph from another galaxy.
The Project Octavius astronauts, Gavin Rochester, Adrian Grant, Howard R. West, Will Hayward, Bentley Russell, Christopher Creasy, and John Sambret, received their final briefing today in what has been described as man's greatest adventure since the first landing on Mars. Project Octavius will leave the Earth's surface at 0700 hours tomorrow.
Have a good life, Abby, my darling. When you marry, make sure he's exactly what you want. Don't take second best. Not a girl like you.
I won't. I promise. I really do promise that.
Oh, sure strong. What you trying to do to me, huh?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, Gavin.
Abby, where...
7 Falls, Whippoorwill Creek, near Baberford.
What's happening?
Oh. Careful, my angel. I've had you drugged for 2 weeks. Your head must feel like... The Project Octavius left Earth a week late due to the mysterious disappearance of Gavin Rochester. Finally, when the State Department, the Department of Space Research, Space Programming, and finally, when all were satisfied that there was no plot afoot, the ship left on its journey to another galaxy with Commander Grant in charge, and Russell McCourtney briefed in making the number 7. Gavin Rochester, as far as the public of America, and in fact the world is concerned, traveled with Project Octavius. For the secret will never be revealed. Bad Psychologically, you see, my darling. So you see, you no longer exist, Gavin. Not in this world. And in 100 years, let our children's children unravel the mystery. Now, you're safe. From your father, from everything. You don't have to play at being a spaceman anymore. I told you, I could make decisions. I didn't wait for the balance to swing. I also promised you to marry the man I wanted to. You see, I was never in any doubt. Sleep, my darling. We'll have to rename you and change you because you're a new, different man now. And you're never going to see a city, not a rocket, not a space program. Nothing like that ever again.
Well, why not? Somebody once said every decision that's ever made is really made by a woman behind a man who is behind a man. As long as the man doesn't know, why should he kick up a fuss? In Gavin Rochester's case, it was too late anyway. And who would be fool enough to say he ever wanted to go to another galaxy? And now, until next week, this is Charles B. Ryan saying good night.
When the day is gone and the sun sets fire to the faraway hills, when the rivers flow red in the twilight and the long shadows slowly fade into darkness, when the action's over and stories are retold round a log fire, that's when a man needs a beer. Carling Black Label. Husky, lusty, and strong, Carling is the man's brand. Extra-strength Carling Black Label is now brewed right here in South Africa, so you don't lose a day of that lusty, lively taste Carling is world-famous for. If you've got a thirst, put our brand on it. Carling Black Label, brewed for men in 18 breweries around the world. Carling invites you to listen again next week to another story in this dramatic series, The Challenge of Space. The Challenge of Space. Carling, world brewers of the great American beer Carling Black Label, presents another story in the dramatic series, The Challenge of Space.
Good evening. This is Charles B. Ryan, Director of Space Research here at the New Mexico Center, which coordinates the efforts of thousands of people connected with the space program. This is a story of 3 ground crew men who faced unexpected danger in carrying out their duties. I call it a climb up to safety.
When the sun burns straight overhead and the grass lies scorched underfoot, when the breeze is gone and the air hangs heavy as lead, when the red dust cakes on a man's face and the dryness bites deep in his throat, that's when a man needs a beer. Carling Black Label beer. Husky, lusty, and strong. Carling is the man's brand. Extra strength Carling Black Label is now brewed right here in South Africa, so you don't lose a day of that lusty, lively taste Carling is world famous for. If you've got a thirst, put our brand on it. Carling Black Label, brewed for men in 18 breweries around the world.
The many thousands of technicians at work on all phases of the preparation of the mighty Saturn V rockets which carry our astronauts into space, and those men concerned with the countdown itself, do their work with an efficiency that matches the spirit of these great ventures. Yet chance and circumstance that play such a big part in man's affairs can still intervene to create an unexpected situation. The countdown had gone perfectly, and with their jobs satisfactorily completed, the ground crew were preparing to leave the service gantry that towered beside the waiting rocket. But through no fault of their own, within a few minutes, 3 of those men would be facing death.
Well, there she goes, fellas. Everybody into the elevator.
Countdown went well, Chuck, huh?
Not a hitch, Eddie. How was it in the first aid department?
Well, we sent one fella off the job with a split finger, and a new guy felt a bit dizzy with the height. Otherwise, I guess a clean run. Their cards will be in the rack at ground level.
And that's about now. Okay, fellas, let's have your cards as you leave the elevator. 10, 12, 30, 40, 60. Let's have those 2 from the rack, Eddie. Thanks. That makes 90. There's somebody missing.
You sure?
Well, don't think I miscounted. 40, 50, 70. You didn't send Don Keating down earlier, did you, Ed?
No, I didn't. I gave you the 2 cards for those I sent off.
And you didn't see him amongst this bunch? The ones who came down with us?
Well, Keating's a medium-sized guy with a thin nose, pale complexion.
Yeah, that's him.
No, he definitely didn't come down with us.
That's what I thought. I was sure I couldn't have missed him. He must still be up on the gantry. I'll go find him.
Yeah, I'll come with.
We haven't much time to clear before blast-off. And we don't want to be anywhere around when the rocket motors fire. You'd better get on the cover.
Yeah, look, we got enough time, just about. We'll find him quicker with 2 of us looking.
Okay, Ed, come on.
Where is he working, Chuck?
10th level, operating the air compressors.
Maybe he didn't hear the warning klaxon because of the noise of those things.
The compressors should have been shut down by the time the warning went.
Well, he might have had earplugs.
Hey, you never know. I've been keeping an eye on the emergency staircase in case he's walking down.
Never knew a workman who'd walk when he could use the elevator.
You're right. Here we are at the 10th level.
The compressors are switched off.
As they should be, but where the heck has he got to? Don! Don Keating!
He doesn't seem to be here. I'll give a shout at the stairway and make sure he's not over that side of the gantry platform.
Right, Eddie. I'll look this side.
Right. Hello there. Don Keating. Don! Are you there, Don?
Now, where the heck could that guy have gotten to... Hey, Eddie, I found him.
Oh, okay, Chuck. Where is he? I didn't hear him answer.
He couldn't answer. He's out cold.
Let me look at him. He certainly is out. Say, what do you think happened?
There's a broken rubber pressure pipe here. Looks as if it gave him a crack on the head while he was working on it.
But wouldn't he have been wearing a hard hat?
Yeah, it's lying here beside him.
Yeah. Well, from the look of this bruise, the pipe caught him just on the side of the head below the brain.
Right. Let's get him down in the elevator.
Right.
Take his feet, Eddie.
Okay.
Time's slipping away. We'd better get out of here fast.
Yeah.
I don't want to find myself at the wrong end of a 7.5 million pound thrust rocket engine.
How long do you reckon we've got, Chuck?
10 minutes, no longer. We'll make it, though.
I wonder if there'll be any transport down below.
We'll have to carry him if there's not. But one of the others may have come back with a truck.
If they realize we're still up here.
Surely someone would have missed the foreman.
Foremen don't count. Once work is over...
So what if foremen aren't popular guys that are...
Hey. What the heck?
They've cut off the power supply to the gantry.
And us stuck between floors with a sick man?
They don't know that, evidently. Turning off the current is a safety precaution in case the wires are burnt out by the flame from the rocket motor as it lifts off.
Yeah, I've seen those flames lick halfway up the gantry from ground level. It's spectacular. From the distance.
Even more spectacular from here. I'm going out through the trapdoor on the top of the elevator cage. Give me a leg up, will you, Eddie?
Right. Put your foot in my hands.
Okay.
Can you reach the trap?
Yeah, easy. Lift me a bit higher if you can.
Right. Up you go.
Right, Eddie. Made it. See if you can bring down right. We'll never be able to lift him out of here by ourselves.
Right. What are you going to do?
Climb up the girders of the shaft. Open the platform door from the inside. Then at least we'll be able to get out of this trap.
Control, Hilton here. Who is it?
Stan, Chuck here.
Oh, hi, Chuck. Nice job your boys did on the countdown. Everything okay?
Nothing wrong with the countdown. But there's 3 of us still in the gantry.
The blazes there is. We'll have to abort the mission.
No. Don't do that.
You'll never make it back here now. Ignition's due in 6.25 minutes. Nobody stays on the rig when those motors fire.
Are you telling me we're finished?
Sorry, Chuck. I didn't mean...
Oh, forget it. We haven't got time to argue. Can you put the gantry power back on?
I can try, but I can't promise anything. It'd have to be cut 3 minutes from now in any case. If one of those heavy cables went down to Earth, you'd be electrocuted.
Instead of frying as the rocket takes off? Nice choice. But don't bother. I don't think it'll help us. I certainly don't want to be stuck in the elevator at Blasto.
What are you doing up there at this time in the first place?
Don Keating was laid out in an accident. Eddie Baker and me went back to look for him, and the elevator stopped on us.
Look, let me abort the mission.
No, forget it. I'll ring you back. I got an idea.
But, Chuck...
What was that all about, Stan? Somebody on the gantry?
Chuck, Eddie, and Don Keating.
We'll have to abort.
Chuck says no.
To blazes with what Chuck says.
We can cancel the firing right down to within a few seconds of the start of the ignition sequence. That gives us about 5 minutes.
But they'd be roasted alive up there.
I know. There's that chance. Chuck says he'll ring us back.
They haven't got time to make phone calls.
Well, he says he has something in mind, but I can't think what it is.
Don? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Who is it?
It's Eddie. Eddie Baker.
Where am I? What happened?
Look, we're stuck in the elevator. Do you think you can stand up?
I feel a bit dizzy.
Yeah, you had a crack on the head. The dizziness will pass off. You're not really injured.
Hello? Has Don come around?
Yeah, he's still a bit muzzy, but he's with us again.
I got a short section of aluminum ladder. I'll pass it through the trapdoor. Here, coming down.
Okay. All right, I got it. Now, Don, let me help you up the ladder.
Where are we going?
Onto the top of the elevator and then up onto the platform, okay?
I'll try.
Good, man. I'll help you.
And me. I'll give you a hand once you're through the trapdoor.
All right. That's it, Don.
Oh, I feel terrible.
Don't worry. We'll fix you up once we get out of here. Hang on tight. Up you go.
Right, Don. Here, I got you on. Yeah, easy, does it?
Thanks, Chuck. Oh, my head.
Yeah, it'll ease a bit presently.
Can I rest?
Later. Okay, Eddie. I got down safely up here.
Good. Now, if I bring up the ladder and prop it securely, it's a bit short.
Only 2 or 3 feet. Now, up you go, Eddie. Then I'll come and support Don from behind. Right, Don. Now, up you go. Now, quick as you can, son.
I don't understand this. I don't understand it at all. Well, why's the elevator stop working? We're near firing time, aren't we?
That's how near we are, Don. The power's been cut off.
Then we must get out of here.
No, there isn't time now, Don.
There must be time. Well, let's get down the emergency stairs.
Don, there isn't time for that. We make it to the bottom and be out in the open just as the motor's fired. You know what that would mean?
I know what it means if we're up here. I'm going down.
No, you're not, Don.
Let me go on going down, I tell you. What level's this, anyway?
The 7th, Don, but listen, Chuck's right. If you made it to the ground, you'd never get under cover before the whole area's blasted.
Not if we stand here talking about it. Now, let go be the two of you. Let go!
Easy, Don.
I phoned Stan Hilton and told him we were up here.
Is he going to abort the firing?
I told him not to, Eddie.
You're crazy! You've seen what happens to anything that can burn on these towers when the rocket exhaust blasts them. Let go of me. I'm not staying here with you crazy guys. I'm getting off this rig.
Don, just listen to me.
No. Well, you're keeping me here. Our last chance of getting clear is slipping away.
Now, just listen, Don. That last chance went a few moments ago when the elevator stopped running.
I don't care. You've got no right to keep me here. I want to go down. Let me go.
Shut up, Don. Shut up. And listen to me. In a few minutes from now, the lower levels of this gantry will be filled with smoke and flame and unburned fuel. You'd fry, freeze, and suffocate. But what you're actually going to do is climb higher up this gantry. You've got to climb upwards to safety. Do you hear me? Up, not down. Now get going, but fast.
Know something? In these mellow after-supper hours, there's nothing like a beer to make a man feel good, relaxed and good. And there's no beer like a Carling Black Label. Carling is the man's brand, the great American beer that's now brewed right here in South Africa, so you don't lose a day of that lusty, lively taste Carling is world famous for. Got a thirst? Then why not get your hands on a Carling right now, cold and frosty in the can. Man, oh man, isn't that just what real beer is all about? No wonder Carling is enjoyed by men in more than 50 countries around the world. Go for the man's brand. Go for Carling. Carling Black Label.
I'm stressed. I think I can go any further.
You're doing okay, Don.
Sure, Don. Not much further now.
Just a short rest. I'm sick.
We better let him rest. Yeah. We may have to carry him, Chuck.
All right, Red. You sit there for a few moments. Don, Eddie, I'll phone control from here.
Right. Okay.
Hilton.
Stan? Chuck.
I thought it would be you. Shall we abort the mission?
No, Stan. We're at the 11th level and going up.
Going up?
Yep. Down below there'd be too much fire splash as the motors ignite. And the rocket takes a few seconds to build up power as it lifts off. We'd be burned to a crisp.
But even at the higher levels...
We stand a good chance. The splash won't reach us and the rocket will go past quicker anyway. Maybe 3 seconds is all we'd have to stand at the main blast.
Chuck, there can be no question of you standing up to the main blast.
The radiated heat from the main blast, I mean. We're going up to the 14th or 15th level, as high as we can get. How long have we got?
2.5 minutes to lift off.
Stand by. I'll ring you when we get to our final level. Then you come up and get us when it's all over, huh?
Will do, Chuck. But I'll stand by for your final call before ignition. Just over 2 minutes now.
I'm cold.
We're all cold on this deck. So come on. Get moving, Don, please.
Come on, Don. It's no good standing here. Frost from the fuel venting out of the tanks is falling all over us. It'll be warmer higher up.
Warmer? We'll roast as the rocket goes by.
No, we won't, Don. I promise you we won't.
Who do you think you are? A fire god to be able to stop it?
Oh, I'm cold. Come on, Don. Watch you don't slip on the ice. Come on. Eddie, grab his arm. I'm sick of... I'm cold.
Now, come on. You're not going to freeze or burn. Not if we know it. Now, let's just get moving again. Move!
Can you spot them through the glasses, Stan?
I thought I did see them once, somewhere up on the 12th or 13th platform. See if you can spot them, Clark.
Okay, Stan. Now, what do you give for the chances?
I got permission to cancel the blast off at 60 seconds, just before internal power on the rocket takes over completely. Chuck only needs to say the word.
Why don't we abort anyway?
You got any idea how much even half an hour's delay would cost? And with the tanks pressurized, it's not as easy as all that. It'd take a week, more likely. And then we needn't bother to fly the mission.
But 3 men's lives are at stake.
I know it. Chuck knows it. We'll let him decide.
But it isn't only the heat. Although that'll be bad enough, there'll be fumes from burning paint, smoke from the rocket firing.
As well as a gale of wind from the exhaust that could blow them off the gantry. You don't need to tell me.
Hilton.
Stan, we're at the 15th level. There's 2 platforms above us, but they'll protect us from anything coming down on us.
Chuck, give me the word to call this whole thing
No,
off.
Stan, we'll take a chance on it.
Look, I got permission to cancel the firing.
No, not after the words everyone's put into this thing. The countdown went without a hold-up. You don't get many like that.
You got 15 seconds to give the word. After that, it'll be too late once the ignition sequence is
Time
started.
to make final preparations, then. 15th level, Stan, okay?
We'll find you, Chuck. Good luck.
Isn't it quiet?
Yeah. It's a bit unnatural with all that activity going on down there. I wish it wasn't so quiet. There's one thing that can spell real safety for us, but I didn't think they'd leave it so late before the firing.
What's that, Chuck?
It's the...
I can't stand it. Why doesn't somebody do something? Not just wait around to get fried.
There's not a lot we can do, Don. Chuck's got an idea which he's going to tell
I'm
us
not burning to death. I'm going to make it quick.
Grab him, Eddie.
Right.
I got him, Chuck.
Let me go. I'm going to jump. At least it'll make it quick.
Oh, no, you're not.
Grab his arms, Chuck.
I don't want to burn. I don't want to burn.
Watch it, Eddie. You'll be over the edge in a minute.
Got my foot on a stanchion. Pull him further onto the platform, for heaven's sake. He's nuts just for the moment. Have to hit him if necessary.
If you two don't let me go, I'll take you both with me.
Oh, no, you'll be all right. I tell you, you'll be all right. Don, stop struggling.
I'm going to die. I'm going to die my way.
You will die if you go over the edge, but you got a chance up here.
I don't want to die. I don't want to...
All right. Come on, Don. Come on, we'll look after you.
Watch that he doesn't make a bolt for it, eh?
Okay, I've got him, Chuck. It's all right now.
It's all right, fellas. I won't do it again.
Yeah, of course you won't.
We'll be safe here, won't we, Chuck?
Yeah, sure, we'll be safe. But we must go over to the other side of the platform.
But that's nearer the rocket than this side.
Yeah, I know it is, but don't you see...
No! We'll all be killed. I won't go over there!
Well, ignition sequence has started. Nothing can save him now except...
Except what?
Whatever Chuck got up his sleeve.
Do you think he's just kidding us about it being safer up there near the top?
No, it's obvious that they've been turning it a crisp on the lower levels. You've seen the gantry after a fire.
Yeah. I've also seen the side of each platform going incandescent as the rocket climbs past.
It doesn't penetrate far into the gantry, though.
How far is far? And what will the radiated heat be like?
Never measured it. I don't think anybody knows. Can you see anything of them through the binoculars?
No, I wouldn't expect to. They'll be on the far side, as far away from the rocket as they can get.
They better not get too far towards the back of the platform, or they'll be pushed off by the blast.
30 seconds to blast off. I hope they're ready to face it.
Don, if you won't come across to the other side of the platform with us, we'll have to drag you.
What are you trying to do to us? We're as far away from the flame path as we can get.
We haven't time to argue. Grab him, Eddie.
Right.
No!
Him across.
Okay.
No!
Straighten your knees and walk, man.
No!
Right, Eddie. Drag him.
Okay, come on over here.
There, this should be all right. Stand there, Don. Stand there.
See if you can stand, Don.
I can't. Let him sit with his back to the girder so that he's facing away from the rocket.
Now, you sit there, Don. You'll be shielded by the girder.
Eddie, fasten my belt to his and strap him to the girder, okay?
But why should we...
I hope it'll hold. There'll be a fair amount of blast. You can do the same with yours. You're skinny enough for it to wrap around yourself and the girder.
All right, but what about you?
I've slipped my arms out of my coverall, and I'll tie the sleeves to something. Then we'll all have to hang on like crazy.
It can only be about 30 seconds to blast off now.
Eddie, Chuck, I'm scared.
Take it easy, Don. You've had a bit of a rough time.
And we're all scared, Don.
But why are we so close to the rocket side?
Because over here, there's the one thing that'll save us. I hope. But I didn't know they left it this late.
What is it, Chuck?
It's the... here it comes.
Hey, the water sprinkler system.
That's it. The whole of the side of the tower nearest to the motor blast is drenched with water. Both of you make sure you're thoroughly soaked.
Oh, I'm cold again.
Sorry, Don. You can take your choice. Just make sure you're good and soaked.
It won't be many seconds now.
Don, and you, Eddie, make sure you hang on with both hands. Eddie, Don can't dash off somewhere, can he? Don't want to fight him as the rocket lifts on.
Oh, don't worry, Chuck. He can't get free. I've knotted the ends of the belt so they won't go through the buckles.
Thanks for your help, Eddie. You needn't have been in this at all, really.
It seemed to be a two-man job, Chuck.
Blast off! Let's blast off!
It's okay, Don. Hang on tight.
I don't want to burn.
And you won't. You're too wet to burn. Okay, Eddie?
Ready, Chuck?
Hang on tight, both of you.
Oh, what's that? Chuck, there's a rocket hit the tower.
No, it's the access ramp swinging clear.
But how could it move if the power is off?
It's hydraulic. But brace yourselves. Here comes the worst part.
Billy, drowning with this water spray.
Look down, Eddie, and shut your eyes. Protect them from the blasting heat.
I'm not going to look around. Listen to that motor building up power.
It should be climbing now. It'll only take a second or so to go past.
We may get the full force of the blast if the rocket tilts away from the tower.
I hope it doesn't, not till it's at altitude.
Fuel! There's fuel spraying around!
Pull your legs in. Keep under the strongest water spray you can.
And hold your breath till it's gone, till it's washed away.
It's fast. The rocket's fast.
But the heat and the steam.
I can't stand it.
Get under the sprays and hang on.
I never fought in a bit like this.
Hold on, Eddie. Hold on for the blast.
How much longer?
Just a few seconds.
The heat! I can't stand the heat!
Keep your eyes shut and hang on. Just hang on.
Hilton, control.
The phone still works.
Chuck, you're okay?
Alive, but call me baldy. Got no hair or eyebrows. Got singed off, even though we were soaking wet.
How is that?
Still under the gantry coolant sprays. Tied to girders against the blast. Don't think we would have made it otherwise. Eddie's okay, but Don's pretty shocked. How was the launch, Stan?
Perfect. Just like the countdown.
Good. We're on the 15th level. Coming to get us?
As soon as everything's cooled down, we'll find you.
Right.
Chuck.
Yeah?
You did a pretty good job up there.
Well, I guess that's why they made me foreman.
Not exactly all in the day's work, because the space program is designed with safety in mind for astronauts and ground crew members alike. When something unusual happens, something not covered by the regulations, it's only the men on the spot who can do anything about it. But we hope it's not usually such a hot spot. And now, until next week, this is Charles B. Ryan here at the New Mexico Space Center, wishing you all good night.
When the day is gone and the sun sets fire to the faraway hills, when the rivers flow red in the twilight and the long shadows slowly fade into darkness, when the action's over and stories are retold round a log fire, that's when a man needs a beer. Carling Black Label. Husky, lusty, and strong, Carling is the man's brand. Extra-strength Carling Black Label is now brewed right here in South Africa, so you don't lose a day of that lusty, lively taste Carling is world famous for. If you've got a thirst, put our brand on it. Carling Black Label, brewed for men in 18 breweries around the world. Carling invites you to listen again next week to another story in this dramatic series, The Challenge of Space.
The Challenge of Space. Carling, world brewers of the great American beer Carling Black Label, presents another story in the dramatic series, The Challenge of Space.
Good evening. This is Charles B. Ryan, head of the Department of Space Research here at the New Mexico Center. Tonight, I have a story for you that is as fresh as tomorrow's headlines. A story that takes us but one step away from mankind's greatest adventure. And I call this story 10 Miles to the Moon.
When the sun burns straight overhead and the grass lies scorched underfoot, when the breeze is gone and the air hangs heavy as lead, when the red dust cakes on a man's face and the dryness bites deep in his throat, that's when a man needs a beer. Carling Black Label beer. Husky, lusty, and strong. Carling is the man's brand. Extra strength Carling Black Label is now brewed right here in South Africa, so you don't lose a day of that lusty, lively taste Carling is world famous for. If you've got a thirst, put our brand on it. Carling Black Label, brewed for men in 18 breweries around the world.
Through the ages, man has always reached out for the moon. Religions have been founded with the moon as an idol. Astrologers even today claim to plot the course of human lives as influenced by the moon. Madmen were supposed to come under the spell of this earthly satellite. Even our word for madman comes from the Latin for moon, lunatic. The moon is romance, and the moon is madness. And now that man has grown wings, this romantic madness is still upon us. For we are the people who are blessed with the technology and the ability to do what man through the ages could only long to do, to reach out and touch the moon, to walk upon it, and to say, in truth, we have known the moon, and it is ours. In 1961, a young man took his place in front of Congress in Washington. and spoke. His name was John Fitzgerald Kennedy, President of the United States, and he spoke about the moon.
I believe this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth. No single space project will be more impressive to mankind, and none will be so difficult or expensive to accomplish. And I ask this Congress for funds to enable...
An impossible dream? Another instance of moon madness? At the time, that's what it seemed to be, because the Russians were far ahead in the race toward the stars. America had not even been able to place an unmanned lunar probe closer than 20,000 miles to the lunar surface, and that's a good distance away. Nobody believed then, even remotely, that it could be done. And yet, in 1962, President Kennedy spoke again. Spoke on the same subject.
No nation which expects to be the leader of other nations can expect to stay behind in this race for space. That challenge is one that we are willing to accept, that we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win.
The Challenge of Space, the title of this series of programs, and the words of President John Kennedy. But of course, there were immediate problems. Nobody knew just how to go about reaching the moon, far less landing a man on its surface. Rocket expert Werner von Braun, looking far into the future, saw it like this.
I would use 2 Saturn rockets, one carrying a manned capsule and the other one carrying extra fuel. Both these rockets would be launched into Earth's orbit, and there they would rendezvous, while the rocket with the capsules refueled from the other. The refueled capsule would then shoot out of orbit towards the moon and return. In effect, quite simple.
That was one approach from Werner von Braun. Maxime Faget, one of the designers of the Mercury spacecraft, had yet another and possibly simpler idea. Here is how he described it.
Naturally, everyone knows that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So I envisage a rocket larger than any rocket yet on the drawing boards, which will simply lift the spaceman from the Earth directly to the moon. The capsule, which has a certain amount of power of its own, would then lift from the surface of the moon and return to Earth.
2 very sound theories from 2 of the leading exponents of rocket research. Both were worth considering, but the final answer had not yet been reached. An American spaceman had to reach the moon. President Kennedy had given the green light. But how would it be done? It was at a meeting in Washington that the answer was finally reached, and from the most unexpected source.
Gentlemen, please, thank you. We thank Dr. von Braun for his very enlightening talk. This is, I think, worth serious consideration. Now, our next speaker, some of you may already know, although he prefers to stay out of the limelight. Gentlemen, Dr. John C. Hubo.
Thank you. Well, it's nice to know my friends are out in force today. Thank you. Now, gentlemen, I've examined the theories put forward by my eminent colleagues, Maxime Faget and Dr. Werner von Braun, and the one fault that I have to find with them is that they will not be practicable for quite some time yet. Certainly not within the time period asked for by President Kennedy. Now, it occurs to me that rendezvous around the moon is like being in a living room. Now, why should we take the whole darn living room down to the moon when we could get there in an easy chair? A little tiny craft, rather than a big one. So I've evolved this theory, which falls right within my field of work, called Lunar Orbit Rendezvous, or LOR. Now, gentlemen, tables of my figures have been handed to you. If you have any queries...
Yes, you are being misleading, Doctor. Your figures lie.
A point of order, Dr. Faget. Please control yourself. Yes, Dr. von Braun, you have the floor.
With respect to Dr. Hobart, Mr. Chairman, I'm afraid this idea is no good at all.
John C. Hubolt's idea was dismissed. He was asked to drop the subject of lunar orbit rendezvous entirely from talks he gave at NASA meetings and conferences. And still men talked and planned on the best way to reach the moon, now so close, yet still so far away. Finally, desperately, after months of frustration, Dr. Hubolt bypassed the administration with a letter direct to the Associate Administrator of NASA. NASA gave Hubolt a hearing, and at last Max Faget and Werner von Braun came round to his way of thinking. Now, nothing stood in the way of the Apollo project, the fastest way to the moon. Work began on the Apollo modules, the three-man capsule in which the astronauts would live on their way through 250,000 miles of space, and on the Lunar Excursion Module, the LEM, in which they would actually land. The two craft which would orbit together, then separate, then rendezvous above the surface of the moon. The two craft which would become affectionately known as Charlie Brown and Snoopy. But first there were experiments. The first ended in tragedy when Apollo 1 burst into flames and the lives of 3 pioneer astronauts were snuffed out in seconds. But work went on. Schedules were kept, men were trained, and then the first manned flight aboard Werner von Braun's gigantic Saturn rocket was made in the capsule named Apollo 7. Aboard were astronauts Wally Schirra, Don Eisler, and Walter Cunningham. These men and the Apollo mission were go. They practiced the intricate maneuvers of docking in orbit, then returned to their native Earth. But then America gave the world a Christmas present unlike any it had ever had before. Astronauts Frank Borman, James Lovell, and Bill Anders flew their Apollo 8 capsule around the moon.
Chris, the horizon here is very, very stark. The sky is pitch black and the sun is white. We can see the lunar craters Casper and Gilbert. Further on the horizon, the mountains are coming up now. They're heavily impacted with numerous craters.
There's a beautiful moon out tonight, Frank.
There's a beautiful Earth out there that we can see, Chris. I can see the entire Earth now, out of the center window.
Eddie, do you suppose there's intelligent life down there?
Who's the joker?
That's Bill Anders. But you know, as we headed out toward the moon coming up here, the Earth got smaller and smaller. The continents blended together. Maybe man's problems will also blend together and get smaller. And we can start generating a spirit of cooperation.
Merry Christmas, Frank.
And so Apollo 8 circled the moon and came home. Then came the little publicized Apollo 9, but all this was prelude. Nothing more than the overture to the symphony which had yet to come. Because now came the second to last step in man's greatest achievement. Now, wheeled out on its enormous gantry to the launch site at Cape Kennedy, comes the mightiest rocket the world has ever seen, the Titanic Saturn V, the brainchild of Werner von Braun.
The Saturn V rocket, the most powerful of all the Apollo boosters, consists of 3 stages. The first 2 stages are jettisoned immediately after burnout, by which time the 3rd stage and the modules will be in a parking orbit around the Earth. Now, a 5-minute burn of the 3rd stage boosts the spacecraft past escape velocity, the speed needed to escape the Earth's gravitational pull, and sends it on its way to the moon at 24,000 miles an hour. After the 3rd stage is jettisoned, all motive power comes from rockets contained in the service module, which is only jettisoned shortly before splashdown.
Dr. Werner von Braun, atop his powerful Saturn V rocket, waiting for the fire which will send them hurtling toward the moon, sit 3 skilled men. Command pilot Tom Stafford and fellow astronauts Eugene Cernan and John Young. And as they wait to hear the countdown reach the 0 mark, let's hear from Command Pilot Tom Stafford.
Apollo 10 Command Pilot Stafford describes the mission for Apollo 10. The major reason behind the Apollo 10 mission
is to pull together all of the known facts that we've had in the past and previous Apollo missions and find out the final unknowns before the actual lunar landing mission.
Tom Stafford, you're going to be a very busy man those last few minutes before liftoff from Cape Kennedy. Would you describe what you and John Young and Gene Cernan are doing inside the spacecraft there from about T-10 on down to 0?
All right, at this time, we're going through the final switch position checks with the spacecraft test conductor, and I'm monitoring the booster tank pressures and the booster parameters down below, and I have in charge of the abort handle. John Young is looking at the computer in the center seat and looking at some of our basic small engine parameters, and Gene Cern's on the right checking the fuel cells, electrical power of all nature's AC power, DC power, and the systems on the right-hand side.
Tom Stafford, interviewed by William McCrary and Red Turner on the Voice of America. And at this moment, in the Houston Space Control Center, tension is mounting among controlled activity. The time is 18 seconds and counting.
17 seconds and counting. Guidance internal. 15, 14, 15, 12, 11, 10, 9. We have ignition sequence start. Engines on 5, 4, 3, 2. There's the fire. Engines running. Launch commenced. There it goes. It's moving.
The pioneers of Apollo 10 are on their way to the moon.
Know something? In these mellow after-supper hours, there's nothing like a beer to make a man feel good. Relaxed and good. And there's no beer like a Carling Black Label. Carling is the man's brand, the great American beer that's now brewed right here in South Africa, so you don't lose a day of that lusty, lively taste Carling is world famous for. Got a thirst? Then why not get your hands on a Carling right now, cold and frosty in the can. Man, oh man, isn't that just what real beer is all about? No wonder Carling is enjoyed by men in more than 50 countries around the world. Go for the man's brand. Go for Carling. Carling Black Label.
At this point, I'd like to backtrack slightly in time to just a few moments before the launch of Apollo 10 from Pad 39B at Cape Kennedy. Because it is at this point that the story of this voyage, the voyage of the astronauts themselves, begins. Over then to Red Turner at Cape Kennedy for a description of the vehicle that these men will ride.
On top, we can clearly see the Apollo spacecraft and the command and service module below. The spacecraft standing on the pad stretches over 130 meters into the sky. The weight out there on the pad at this moment is 2,945,134 kilograms. This is the heaviest weight ever lifted into space by the United States. I believe the heaviest ever lifted into space in history. Scheduled to go toward the moon will be 94,500 pounds, or 42,865 kilograms of Apollo and lunar module spacecraft to be slung away from the Earth and headed for the moon.
That's the machine that Werner von Braun built. Perched high above it, the three men wait their long journey, a journey of 8 days and more than 500,000 miles.
On 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All engines running. Launch commenced. Liftoff. We have liftoff. There it goes. It's moving. Looking at the pad. Up into the sky. Clear the tower. Here comes the
That's William McCrory at the Apollo News Center in Washington, describing the launch of Apollo 10. Now, just how fast does a rocket this size travel? How long does it take to place 3 men, their equipment, and a booster rocket into orbit? Let Jack Riley answer that question from the Apollo Mission Control Center in Houston. With all systems go, just more than 3 minutes into the ride.
Downrange, 81 miles, 46 miles high.
81 miles downrange, 46 miles high, at 3 minutes and 9 seconds into the mission. And just 1 minute and 40 seconds later, the ship was all of 230 miles downrange and 76 miles high. Some ride. And maybe Eugene Cernan said it best just shortly after liftoff when he spoke with his buddies up there.
What a ride! Oh, babe, what a ride! Beautiful. Everything's looking good. It's fantastic, babe. Really fantastic.
Just like old times.
Then, scarcely 10 minutes after liftoff, this was the news from Apollo 10.
15 minutes after liftoff from the Earth, and the spacecraft is now moving fast out across the Atlantic. It is safely in orbit, beginning its first revolution of the Earth.
The raw power of the gigantic Saturn ship, placing the 3 men in their orbit less than 15 minutes after liftoff. Now they began their first swoop around this Earth of ours, crossing even the sprawling continent of Africa in a handful of exciting minutes.
They're well into orbit. They'll cross over the Canary Islands, going over the continent of Africa, over Mali, Niger, Chad, in another 4 minutes, Central African Republic, Uganda, over Nairobi, right over Nairobi, and out over the Indian Ocean.
Easy orbits of the Earth, and then the big jump to the moon. Now the powerful S-4B rocket had to be fired for just less than 6 minutes to boost the 3 adventurers to a speed of more than 23,000 miles per hour, escape velocity for translunar injection. Tom Stafford, John Young, and Eugene Cernan are on their way.
Translunar injection, TLI. Underway now as Apollo 10 is, in truth, on the way to the moon.
Now the pace of work eased out for Tom Stafford, John Young, and Eugene Cernan. There was still work to do, sure, but now there was also time for rest and relaxation and for much-needed sleep. And with the moon in the region of 3 Earth days away, there was even time for kidding around with the ground staff.
Hey, is Charlie Duke there?
He sure is. Go ahead, Gene.
Hey, Charlie, babe. Play us our favorite song, will you? I forget the title, the one about flying me someplace or something. You know the one I mean, babe.
But there was still work to do. Plenty of it. Flight paths, systems, communications, figures, all these had to be regularly checked and rechecked between Apollo 10 and Houston Control to make sure of a perfect lunar orbital entry. Then, on the night of May 21st, 1969, at 10:45 p.m. South African time, the rockets of Apollo 10 fired twice, and Tom Stafford spoke.
Charlie, you can tell the world, but we've made it.
Man was once more in orbit around the moon, and now the pace quickened. After a few minor difficulties with insulation that had come loose and a slipped docking collar between the 2 modules, Snoopy and Charlie Brown, the go was given for the separation of the modules in orbit 60 miles above the moon. Expert hands at the controls, the 2 modules moved slightly apart in their lunar orbit.
The separation burn. This is a maneuver in which the command module will slowly fire its RCS for reaction control system clusters and back away from the lunar module. Okay, separation. There we go. Here's the burn. That's John Young confirming his 2.5 system. Stafford says, I can see your thrusters firing, John, and you're moving away. 5.3 on the on EMS and 0 on EMS. Young doing readout. Adios, and we'll see you back in about 6 hours. Stanford said adios, and we'll see you in about 6 hours. For the first time, orbiting around the moon, men are going off into a maneuver in a spacecraft designed only to operate in space, the lunar module.
The first flight of a spacecraft designed and built only for travel in space. See you in 6 hours, says Charlie Brown to Snoopy. And now, there's just one more step to go on this important mission. The descent to 10 miles of the moon. But suddenly there's trouble. Snoopy fails to pick up the signals from Charlie Brown's radar transponder. Stafford calls John Young to check the transponder, and John Young replies.
My transponder is on. That's John Young. Transponder is on, and the jet switch is operating. Transponder, this is... Get the radar signal in, I sure don't. The lunar module now wants to check out its rendezvous radar mechanism. Transponder, an electronic device on the command module which says, here I am, when you're looking for me. Hello, Houston. Houston, we have a new uplink on a CSFT signal. That was Gene Cernan asking Houston for an update on the guidance system. Stand by. We'll have it in a moment. Try to get me around to the radar signal string. Okay. Am I below you or above you? Oh, you're right up. That's Stafford asking John Young for a little better transponder lock from the Charlie Brown transponder. Roger, we've been copying your problems. We're working it down here. Stand by. Is this a no-go for DOI? It's a no-go for descent if this radar doesn't work. This thing is read 0. Let me check the signal. That's John Young saying that the instrument's working properly on the command module. How about trying to recycle the power switch, Charlie Brown? Turn the switch off and back on again. That's what the Earth is telling you. You guys are on. Now I could kiss you.
A cry of relief from Eugene Cernan. Babe, I could kiss you. And now, descent. And the lunar module goes down. Skimming over the craters and hills, Snoopy searches for a landing site for those who will follow in a few weeks' time. On the dark side of the moon, communication from the little spacecraft blacks out, and for 50 suspenseful minutes, the world holds its breath, until, speeding through the lunar dawn, an exultant voice calls out,
Houston, this is Snoopy.
Now the mission appears successful, but the troubles are not yet over. Halfway through the second orbit, only 9.4 miles above the moon, Snoopy's controls go out of kilter, a moment of nightmare for the two men aboard.
This is Houston. What's the matter, Smith?
Hey, we sure go down the door. We go backwards.
The module gone to the wall.
Hit the gas, baby. Hit the gas. I don't know what the heck's wrong.
The abort switch is
Hit it, Tom. Hit it. This thing just took off on us. Hey, that's got it. It's okay. I'll tell you, that was wild, baby. I thought we were one of the old stars.
Don't worry about it when we get back.
A simple switch, yet two men might today be lost because of it. The rest of the mission went without a hitch. Snoopy and Charlie Brown redocked in lunar orbit, and Charlie Brown, now with all three men aboard, sailed back home to a splashdown which today is almost routine. But two friendly, heartwarming messages had yet to reach astronauts Tom Stafford, Eugene Cernan, and John Young. The first came as they sped back toward the Earth.
Hey, I've got a message for you guys. Here it is. Congratulations to Snoopy for doing what I've been trying to do for a long time. Signed, the Red Baron.
And the other came from the crewmen of the astronauts' pickup ship, the USS Princeton, as the three pioneers were plucked from the waters of the Pacific.
Painted on the bottom of that helicopter a special welcome sign. The two big eyes and the message, "Hi there, Charlie Brown."
And that's the story. A story as new as tomorrow's headlines. The story of the trail which is being blazed to our mysterious satellite right at this moment. A story of hope, of endeavor, of frustrations, and most of all, of supreme courage. Only a few days from now, God willing, man will have set foot on the moon for the first time. An impossible achievement, but for those who blazed the exciting trail. And next week, I hope I'll be here to tell you about the preparations for this historic journey. Until then, this is Charles B. Ryan here at the New Mexico Center, wishing you all good night. Recorded material in tonight's program was used by courtesy of the Voice of America.
Got a man-sized thirst? A thirst for a beer that's strong, husky, and lusty to the last lively drop? Then go for the Man's brand, now in new man-size cans. Big new 16-ounce man-size cans of Carling Black Label are available now in the Transvaal, Free State, and Northwestern Cape areas. Man, oh man, this is what real beer is all about. Go for the Man's brand. Carling Black Label beer in big new man-size cans. Carling Black Label beer. Carling invites you to listen again next week to another story in this dramatic series, The Challenge of Space. The Challenge of Space. Carling, world brewers of the great American beer Carling Black Label, presents another story in the dramatic series, The Challenge of Space.
Good evening. This is Charles B. Ryan, head of the Department of Space Research here at the New Mexico Center. A space mission is the most complex journey ever undertaken by man. Years of work go into preparing for such a journey in which perhaps only two human beings set out and arrive. But in spite of all the preparations, sometimes there are pressures to cancel a space shot at the very last moment, sometimes at the cost of valuable human life. Our story tonight is of one such mission, and it is called Mission Abort.
After a man's been driving himself hard all day long, challenging the sun and the wind, slogging in the heat and the dust to get a job well done, that's when a man needs a beer. And there's no beer like a Carling Black Label. Husky, lusty, and strong, Carling is the man's brand. The great American beer that's brewed right here in South Africa. So you don't lose a day of that lusty, lively taste Carling is world famous for. Satisfied that you've done a man's job today? Then go for the man's brand. Carling Black Label. America's lusty, lively beer that's enjoyed by men in over 50 countries around the world. Carling Black Label beer, the man's brand.
There are many reasons for aborting a mission. Sometimes a minute piece of equipment, in spite of the many tests it has undergone, will malfunction and cause a space shot to be aborted. This was the case with Apollo 13, and on this occasion the malfunctioning could well have cost 3 brave men their lives, and indeed almost did. But faulty equipment or apparatus is by no means the only reason a space shot is aborted. There are other reasons, some of them more sinister by far.
Well,
Well, Comrade Captain Rostov, you leave for the United States. You are satisfied with your cover story?
Satisfied indeed, Comrade General.
Of all the dead imperialists who now languish in their graves, whose identity have you been given?
Captain Rostov has become Charles B. Allen, salesman of Grand Rapids in the state of Michigan.
You are under the skin of this man?
Yes, Comrade General, I am.
Let me see your passport.
Here, Comrade General.
Yes, it satisfies me. It is worthy of our passport department. How many hours were you under interrogation when the GR section attempted to break your cover story?
10 hours without refreshment of any kind or even momentary rest.
They are satisfied?
Oh, they were kind enough to say they'd not yet interrogated an agent whose cover story proved so impossible to break.
Excellent. You know your mission, Comrade Captain, so I shall not waste time you could well spend in sleep. But I have to do my duty to the Soviet people and stress how important this mission is.
I understand, Comrade General.
It is vital that the American Mars shot already in preparation should be delayed.
Yes, Comrade General. It shall be so delayed, even if I should forfeit my life in the process.
No, Comrade, no heroics, please. I had so specifically asked the department that this time they would not provide some determined young man who wishes to go to his maker wreathed in medals.
I'm sorry, Comrade General.
We do not seek your death, Comrade. All we seek is that the American Mars shot be sufficiently delayed to allow our own Mars mission to lift off and be on their way. This is one race in outer space, Comrade Captain, that the Soviet people cannot afford to lose.
I understand.
I hope you do, Comrade. I hope you do. That is why I stipulate, and this is an order, Comrade Captain, who suffers from so determined a death wish. I stipulate that the sabotage necessary to delay the American Mars shot is sufficient merely to delay the mission by a period of approximately 1 month. It is imperative that there is no actual accident. We cannot risk the inquiry which would follow a serious accident causing either severe injury or even death to the American cosmonauts concerned. Is that clear, young man?
Perfectly clear, Comrade General.
Then there is nothing more I can usefully do, Comrade Captain, except to shake your hand and wish you all the luck and goodwill your mission will require.
You wanted to see me, Jay?
That's right, General. We've hit a little trouble, sir.
Well, what is it this time, Jay?
Well, General, the boys are beginning to wonder if maybe there isn't some kind of a jinx on this Mars shot.
Now, listen, Jay, I'm just not going to have that kind of talk here at Cape Nixon. Jinx. From now on, that word is out. Get that?
Yes, sir, I get it.
Okay, now, what's bugging you? And the boys?
Well, Jim Mockler's not feeling so hot, General.
Yeah, what's the trouble?
Seems he's got himself a whitlow on his right big toe.
A whitlow on his right big toe? Yeah, well, that's just great, isn't it? We're going to have to throw a few $1 billion into this mission, and Jim gets himself a whitlow. For want of a nail, the battle was lost.
That's right, sir. Well, anyway, the medics have grabbed Jim, and they're working on him real hard.
They'd better get that toe fixed, and fast.
General, you reckon we're going to get away before the Soviets on this Mars shot?
I reckon just that, Jay.
How much do we know about their preparation, sir?
Well, this is off the record, Jay.
Oh, sure.
When I was in Washington yesterday, I talked with Rogers of CIA. He's got a good agent in Moscow. Well, Rogers figures that the Soviets are going to lose out on this one. He reckons they're not ready to go for another 3 weeks at the minimum.
Phew, that makes me feel a lot better, General.
Okay, then get that word jinx out of your vocabulary, Jay.
Yes, sir. You had a good trip, Mr. Allen. Yeah, I had a great trip. And I guess you want to begin work right away? Well, that's just what I want to do. By the way, there's one thing you can do when you've set up this job. Oh, what's that? Your paymaster in the Kremlin, Mr. Charles B. Allen, is getting kind of forgetful about fun. You want fun, Stryker? Then you be careful you don't mention that word again. What's bugging you? You crazy or something? Kremlin. You want the world should know I'm here? This room's safe. I know that. You know that. Yeah, maybe, but you violated a principle. That doesn't go with me. I'm sorry. There's no need for you to get so all-fired head up. Just you see you don't make that same mistake again. Okay. About those funds. Well, I'm here to attend to that. Great. That's the best news I've had today. One of our messengers was taken. There was nothing we could do about it until now.
As long as you've got the dough.
I said I've got it. Okay. Where's this pigeon you got set up for me?
Eddie Curling. We meet him tonight.
Tell me about him.
He's a member of the American Communist Party.
Those people at NASA. They must be real dumb to let a guy like that with a party card slip through the net.
Even so, Eddie's not all that happy about this thing.
You said he's a member of the Communist Party.
He's also got a wife and kids, and he figures that security is so strict around the spaceship and the rocket at Cape Nixon that he stands a good chance of being caught and spending the rest of his life in the pen.
Why is he doing it, then?
Because of his kids.
Come again?
Eddie knows how we play things by now. He knows that if he doesn't come across with this one, well, something could happen to that son of his. Or that little daughter, Kathy. And he's crazy about that kid.
Okay, Eddie. Now I want you to listen to me for a while.
I'm listening, Mr. Allen.
You mustn't get too worried about this thing.
I'm good and worried, Mr. Allen.
Eddie, we're not asking you to kill anybody.
I know. You already said that.
All we want is this United States Mars shot postponed.
Look, Mr. Allen, I'm committed to this thing now. For me, there's no get-out clause. Well, I know all you want is the shot postponed, but these things just can't be arranged like that.
Why not?
Well, look, Mr. Allen, you know your business, and I happen to know mine. You any idea how many guys are swarming in and around that spaceship for 24 hours a day? Hundreds. You any idea how many times each piece of equipment is checked and rechecked, and then checked again? They get up in the middle of the night because something's bugging them, and they come down to the pad, and they get in the elevator, and up they come, and they start checking some bitty piece of wiring, or whatever it is that's giving them a heebie-jeebies.
Okay. You know what your business is. But this thing has got to go good, Eddie. It's just got to go good.
You figure I want it to go wrong? Well, that's the setup, Van.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Buster, I'm not crazy about it.
How come we ever got ourselves mixed up in a thing like this?
You really want the answer to a question like that?
You figure these babies really would go through with what they said about the kids?
If I didn't, you think I'd be sitting here talking to you about the way we got...
Okay. Just how are we going to play this thing?
Well, we've got to play it simple, but for real. It's got to be fixed at the last minute. After every gold darn inspector in the business has been around and checked and rechecked every centimeter of wire that's in the command module.
That's the place to do it, the command module?
Yeah, that's the place. If we do it in the Mars lander, well, they're going to get there and then have trouble. Maybe they won't be able to lift off, or they won't get back. We don't want to kill anybody.
I'm glad you got around to that.
Our express orders are that nobody's got to be killed. All we're aiming to do is to stop that rocket lifting off. And we've got to fix it in such a way that it can lift off later. Just about 1 month later.
Oh, sure. These guys make it nice and easy, don't they? Okay, Eddie, we're committed to this thing. Now you tell me, just how are we going to organize the hang-up?
I was beating my brains out until I figured that the way to fix this was to work on the main thrust correction motor.
Uh-huh.
And before Jim Muckler leaves Earth's orbit, he's got to check the course correction motor.
Yeah, well, sure, it's on his checklist.
Okay. So, he's still in orbit. He and Hank Merwitz can still be brought back and given the splashdown treatment.
So?
So, when he checks the course correction motor, it's malfunctioning. Well, he's not crazy. He's not going to leave Earth's orbit with a motor that isn't functioning 100%. So?
Mission abort?
Exactly. Mission abort.
Eddie, you figure we can work on this course correction motor and fix it so that none of the inspectors or the guys knows what's happening?
Sure, I figure we can. That's why I chose this specific item in the command module to concentrate on. The day set for the last check of the correction motor is Tuesday week, okay? The following Thursday, you and me, we're scheduled to work on the safety system covering the power failure area.
Yeah. Then we do it, huh?
That's when we do it, man.
Well, I hope we do it good, Eddie. And I hope that when we've done this job, these guys are going to leave us alone.
That's what I hope, too, Van, but they never will. They never will. You're a card-carrying member just like me. They never will leave us alone.
When the sun burns straight overhead and the grass lies scorched underfoot, when the breeze is gone and the air hangs heavy as lead, when the red dust cakes on a man's face and the dryness bites deep in his throat. That's when a man needs a beer. Carling Black Label beer. Husky, lusty, and strong. Carling is the man's brand. Extra strength Carling Black Label is now brewed right here in South Africa, so you don't lose a day of that lusty, lively taste Carling is world famous for. If you've got a thirst, put our brand on it. Carling Black Label, brewed for men in 18 breweries around the world.
Eddie! Where's Eddie Curling?
Here, man, right over here.
Oh. Hey, listen, I got a ham on rye that I want to swap. You in business or even interested?
Sure. Myra Lou gave me 2 peanut butter and apple sauce. Maybe I can get through 1, but not 2. How you fix the peanut butter and apple sauce?
Oh, I'm fresh out, Eddie. Okay, it's a deal. Here.
Thanks. Myra, you know, that baby gets an idea in her head, and brother, it takes Amatol to shift it. You know, one day we went to a visit with her folks. Her old lady gave me a peanut butter and applesauce sandwich, and I said, great. Well, Myra, she figures that's the highlight of my eating life.
Okay. We've covered the sandwich area, Eddie. Right, now we're alone. We can talk. How'd it go?
It went okay, Van. It's done.
You certain nothing can go wrong?
What do you mean? I'm certain something can go wrong. That something is going to go wrong.
You know what I mean.
Hold your horses. Sure, I know what you mean. Now, there ain't no cause to worry, Van. I fixed it the way I said I would. The correction motor will malfunction, but it will malfunction on pre-Mars course testing.
Oh, brother. Do I want out from this business?
Well, that makes sense, Eddie, even to me.
I tell you, Mr. Stryker, I fixed the motor just the way I described it to you.
I want to be good and sure about it, Eddie, so I can explain it to Mr. Allen. You're sure now that the motor you're talking about has to be tested before the spaceship is set on course for Mars?
I'm sure of it. It's in the testing log. They've got to test it. Now, they wouldn't be crazy. That motor means life or death to them. Before landing on Mars and again on re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. Well, they can't forget to test it.
And when they test it?
When they test it, Mr. Stryker, then it's going to malfunction.
So they report it?
They report it immediately. They remain in Earth orbit, and the mission is aborted, and they are brought down.
Great. That's just the way we want it.
Power transfer is now complete. We are on internal power with the launch vehicle at this precise moment. All second stage tanks now fully pressurized. 25 seconds and counting. We are still go with Mars 7.
We feel great, launch team.
T-minus 21 seconds. 20 seconds and counting.
It's going to be a great flight, launch control.
T-minus 17. Guidance computer over to internal power. T-minus 14 seconds. 30. 12. Water nozzles beginning. 10. 9. Automatic ignition. Ignition sequence begins. 6. 5 seconds. 4. 3. 2. 1. Launch commit. Ground elapsed time. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. All engines running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Mars 7, this is Control. Do you read me? Over.
Control, Mars 7. Jim Ockler. Read you, strength 5, Control. Shoot.
How are things, Jim?
Things are fine, Control. No trouble at all. Just not one little bit of trouble on any account.
That's great. Well, Jim, you have completed one orbit. The way we figure it here at Houston, you'll go for trans-Mars injection halfway around your second orbit.
That's okay with us, Houston. We have removed helmets and gloves, and our computers aboard the command module have begun their second series of checks.
We monitored that, Jim, and our computers and bank are checking alongside.
And there isn't any problem, Control.
No problem, Jim. Out.
Yeah, what is it? I just came from the main complex. Yeah, I saw you, Eddie. They got the place wired to Houston. They're getting the whole works from mission control. I guess so. I don't like it. Oh, what's bugging you now? I'll tell you what's bugging me, Van. I don't figure I was so clever after all. I figure I was too careful.
Too careful? Well, look, what's gotten into you?
Yeah, too careful. Maybe I didn't fix that wiring in the course correction thrust motor properly.
You mean it's still going to work?
No, I mean it isn't going to work. But that it will malfunction later. And I mean the malfunction is not going to show up now on the check.
Well, how can that happen?
Well, don't ask me. All I know is that those guys have done one orbit and they're all go. Now, on their next orbit, they're going to go for the trans-Mars injection. The computer's going through the pre-TMI checks, and nothing's come up yet to suggest that the mission isn't still go.
Eddie, what are you trying to say?
Oh, you great dumb ox. You know what I'm trying to say. I'm telling you that I know I fixed that wiring. You know and I know that the course correction motor is going to malfunction. But it's not showing up on any check so far. That means that when it does show up, those two boys will be on their way to Mars. And they're not going to get back if they have to rely on a course correction with that motor.
Oh, quit worrying. It'll show up before they give them go for TMI.
No, Van, I don't figure it will. You know, that Jim Mockley, he's a great guy. You know, when Kathy was sick, he used to ask me every day how the kid was. He was real interested. And then when she had to go into hospital, he brought me some candy for her. I don't like to think that a guy like that is going to...
Look, just quit worrying. There's nothing you can do about it now.
There maybe is something I can do about it.
There's nothing you can do... Hey, look, don't frighten me like that. You had me worried there for a while.
Van, you don't have to come in with me. But there is something I can do. I can do about this thing. I can have it stop right now.
Are you crazy or something? You know what they're going to do to you if you try and have the mission aborted now. They're going to throw the whole NASA book at you, Eddie, and the book of the United States Constitution as well.
I know.
They put you in a pen and you're just never going to see daylight again. Sabotage one of Uncle Sam's spacecraft? You must be crazy to think that way.
I can't help it, Van. That's the way I'm figuring now.
Yeah. Well, what about the party?
I still belong to the party, but I don't aim to take a man's life, two men's lives, just because I carry a card. Besides, our orders were to be good and sure we didn't kill anybody. The idea was just to hold the Mars shut up, to postpone it for a month.
And what do you aim to do, Eddie?
Well, I said you don't have to come in with me, Van. I aim to do the only thing that's possible to do. Go to the top brass and tell them that I fixed the command module.
You think they're going to believe you?
Yeah, I think they will. I'll tell it to them straight. I figure maybe they'll believe me.
You're crazy.
I told you, Van, you're on your own. You don't have to come in with me.
Yeah, that's what you say now, Eddie. You just wait until those guys get hold of you and hand you over to the cops and the pigs start grilling you. You don't seriously figure you're going to be able to keep your trap shut, do you?
I said I'll leave you out of the whole thing, Van. And that still goes.
Not when the cops have worked you over. Hey, what's that? What are you doing?
It's loaded, Van. And it's pointed at a very uncomfortable place.
What?
I don't trust you, Van. I figure that knowing you know what I'm going to do, if I turn my back on you, it's going to be curtains for me. And a mighty uncomfortable headache afterwards. So that's just what I'm going to do to you.
Now, listen.
Turn round, Van.
Now, Eddie,
I said turn round, Van. Fast. Okay, that's it. I'm sorry, buddy, but this is the way it's got to be. Keep still.
Okay, Curling. I got what you said. Now, nice and easy. Just let me have it again.
I said, General, you've got to stop the TMI burn for Mars 7.
Because?
Because I carried out an act of sabotage in the command module, General.
Yeah. Well, I reckon I got that loud and clear. Jay.
Right here, General.
Get Houston on the line right away.
Okay. Jay Harper, get me Houston fast. Mission Control, Senior Controller. Right. No, I'll hold, operator. Houston coming on the line, General.
Okay, let me handle it. Thanks. Houston. Good. General Sarnoff here. What state is the Mars shot in, Sam?
General, Mars 7 has 1/2 an orbit to make, then it's go for trans-Mars injection.
Okay, Sam. Now, look, Sam, I haven't got a lot of time, but something's come up here at the Cape. We've got a problem. I wanted to keep this line open, okay?
What'd you say, General?
I wanted to keep this line open, and I want you to be at the end of it. And, Sam, I want you to be free to move fast if I have to tell you to move.
Can you tell me what kind of trouble, General?
Just keep it under your hat for the moment, Sam. For the kind of trouble we've got may mean we have to abort this mission.
Abort the...
Take it easy, Sam, and play it close to your chest, huh?
Yes, General.
Okay, Sam. I'll be with you. Just be there. Operator, I'm going to replace this receiver, all right? But I want this line to Houston kept open. Is that clear? Okay, out. Now, Curling, let's have it. And let me have it straight. You see, you carried out an act of sabotage. Now, just where?
General, in the wiring system of the firing capsule pin and the course correction motor.
Uh-huh. Why?
I wanted to abort the mission, General.
Yeah? Why should you want to do a thing like that?
I'm a member of the American Communist Party, General.
You think that this is possible, Jay, that after all our security checks and the systematic checks carried out by these technicians in the course of their employment, a guy like this could slip through the net?
Well, I suppose it's got to be possible, General.
Here's my party card, General.
That faces me just a little, Curling. It's too pat for this kind of thing. Why should you come down here to work at the Cape today, launch day, carrying the American Communist Party card?
I had a bad night, General. I figured that maybe I'd worked on that thing in the command module too hard. That the ship wouldn't get into orbit. Then I figured maybe I'd worked it too soft. That the malfunction wouldn't be found on test, and you know what that would mean.
Yeah, I know. Hold it. Sam.
Here, General.
Sam, things aren't working out quite the way I expected. But I can't take any chances, Sam. I want that ship to make one more orbit after this one. And now hear this. Trans-Mars injection on this orbit is canceled. Repeat, canceled.
I've got that, General.
Okay, Sam, I'll call you back. Okay, Curling. Now, you listen to me for a while. Your pals in the Soviet, if you really are a card-carrying communist and not just a nutcase, your friends in the Soviet are readying a Mars shot right at this minute.
Sure, I know that, General.
Yeah, well, in which case it would be a smart move to send a guy like you here carrying a card and saying he sabotaged the course correction motor. Yes, that would make us abort the mission. We couldn't set it up again for at least a month. By that time, the Soviet Mars shot would have blasted off, right?
All right, General. That's one way of figuring it.
And then, too, there's another little matter. At Houston and in the command module, we have 2 sets of computers in bank. For an orbit now, for nearly an orbit and a half. Those computers have been carrying out exhaustive series of checks on all the motors and equipment. Now, how do you suppose that the sabotage you say you carried out hasn't shown up yet?
General, I just don't know. How do I know why this thing hasn't been found? I'm just a technician, not a nuclear scientist. All I know is that I've got the lives of those 2 guys up there on my conscience. I know that I'm putting myself away in the penitentiary for life, General. Yeah, I sure know that. And I know that I'm not going to see my little daughter, Kathy, again. Because that motor is going to go haywire, General. It sure is. When and where, I don't know, but it's going to blow. And when it blows, after I've been here singing to you like a canary, when it blows, then my life is finished. Maybe the life of my wife and kids. You think with a stake like that I'm going to play about with trying to get you to abort a mission when there's nothing wrong? I've been stupid, General, and I guess I'm going to have to pay heavy for that. But I'm not absolutely crazy.
Eddie, if you've been fooling me, then life's going to be just a little complicated for me, too. Okay. I'm going to play my hunch. Jay.
Yes, sir.
Abort the mission.
Yes, General. Mission abort. Check.
Here at the New Mexico Space Research Center, at Houston Mission Control, at the launch pad itself, we learn something from every space shot, whether it be to the moon or Mars. We learn from the successes, and we learn from the failures. And now, until next week, this is Charles B. Ryan wishing you all good night.
The heat of high noon. The dust devils whirl into a sky that's the color of steel. The outlines of the distant hills shimmer in the heat. And man, you're thankful for that cool beer you've got in your hand. The Man's Brand, Carling Black Label. The great American beer that's brewed right here in South Africa, so that you don't lose a day of that lusty, lively taste Carling is world famous for. Carling Black Label is the extra strength beer that's enjoyed by men in more than 50 countries around the world. Got a thirst? Then go for the man's brand. Go for America's lusty, lively beer. Go for Carling Black Label. Carling invites you to listen again next week to another story in this dramatic series, The Challenge of Space.